Hello and welcome to the Moodle course development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section I'll get you started with Moodle by going over what it is and the potential for what can be done with Moodle. But first, we'll start off with a course overview, describing each section in the course and how you can maximize its effectiveness. So let's go ahead and get started. Whether you're new to Moodle or have some experience, this course will help you overcome the challenges of teaching online using Moodle, the learning management system. Moodle is a great tool that can help you teach more effectively, but there are definitely some hurdles to overcome before it's the online classroom of your dreams. This course will help you realize the potential of Moodle and overcome those hurdles so that you can make the most out of the learning management system. We'll start out with a course overview covering what you'll learn in each section of the course. Then we'll talk about how you can make the most out of this course by completing the practice activities and some advice for learning Moodle in general. So let's go ahead and get started by talking about what you'll learn in this course. The sections of this course can be completed in order, or you can pick and choose based on your individual needs. If you're new to Moodle and are looking for a more complete education, I'd recommend starting at the beginning and working through the sections in order. If you have some experience and are looking for information on specific aspects of Moodle, then you can pick and choose and go straight to the section that will help you reach your goals. We'll start out by introducing you to Moodle and its overall potential. Then we'll dig deeper into the ins and outs of configuring and using Moodle to help you reach your individual goals. In each section, I'll provide demonstrations and examples that will give you an idea of the potential of Moodle and how it can be used to suit your needs. Along with the video demonstrations in each section, I'll also recommend specific practice activities that will help you retain the information being covered. Completing the practice activities is crucial to truly understanding the information being covered, so make sure not to overlook them at the end of each video. If you're going to be successful with Moodle, it's crucial that you dig in and get your hands dirty by following along and practicing what I'm demonstrating. Watching these videos will give you an idea of what's possible, but the only way to truly retain the information and become a Moodler is to try it yourself on a Moodle site or a course site where it's safe to make mistakes. If you don't have a Moodle sandbox or a course site where you can practice what's covered here, contact your site administrator for help or check out the installation and hosting section for information on installing your own version of Moodle, where you can test anything you'd like without worrying about damaging your production site. There are also resources provided in the course code bundle, such as the example course site, that can help you to practice what we cover in these videos. So when it comes down to it, these videos will help you lead you down the right path, but the true learning will come from getting your hands dirty and practicing it yourself. If you're new to online education, at this point you may be wondering, what is Moodle? In the next section I'll answer that question by reviewing what exactly Moodle is and what it can be used for. The possibilities are endless, but in the next section I'll give you concrete examples that will give you a better idea of what exactly Moodle does and hopefully give you some ideas of how you can take Moodle to the next level. That's it for the course overview, but stay tuned for the next section titled What is Moodle? Welcome back to the second video in the Moodle course development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section I'll get you started with Moodle by going over what it is and discuss the potential for what can be done with Moodle. So let's go ahead and get started. In this video, we're going to answer the question, what is Moodle? And we'll look at a lot of examples of site layouts, resources, and activities used in Moodle sites. So let's go ahead and dive into it by talking about what exactly Moodle is. So what exactly is Moodle? The word cloud you see here represents just a few things that Moodle can be used for. But the point is that Moodle can be whatever you want it to be with a little knowledge and hard work. It's most commonly used for distance learning or online education, but it can also be an online library where you post resources, or it can even be a virtual learning environment where your students go online and interact with activities and other participants. Now I'd like to take this opportunity to show you some examples so you can see what Moodle looks and feels like. We'll start by looking at some example homepages. All Moodle sites have a homepage that is usually designed to guide people to resources available within the site, and it's also where administrators access site administration features to manage the site. Generally, this is not where you would post course activities, but it is what would be considered the landing page, used to guide students to your courses or e-learning modules. So what you're seeing here is the same Moodle site with different themes applied. Although it's the same content, the look and feel can change drastically based on the theme you choose. As you can see, there's a lot of flexibility to how you can make Moodle look, and a lot of themes for you to choose from at Moodle.org or through Moodle partners. The hardest part is using your creativity to create a design that is both functional and eye-pleasing. So now we'll take a look at some course sites, which is normally where all the course content lives. Course sites are where you post all the content and information used for courses. Whether it be documents, quizzes, or e-learning modules, this is where you lay out all of that content. If the home page is the campus quad or homeroom, then the course sites are the individual classrooms throughout the campus. Depending on the course content, there are a lot of different ways you can set up a course site, as you can see from these examples. For now, we're just going to talk about what course sites are, but we'll talk about building course sites in much more detail in later sections. And there's also an example course provided in the course code bundle that'll give you a better idea of what a course site is like. Next, we'll look at some examples of the actual activities and resources that you can use within a course site. In Moodle terms, you can add resources or activities to each course site as the content of the course. Resources mainly consist of files or any types of web pages. You can give students access to any kind of MS Office document, PDFs, websites, or you can use the Moodle HTML editor to create your own web page with course content. We'll talk about resources in more detail in the Adding Static Course Materials section of this course, but for now, let's take a look at some more interactive activities that can be created in Moodle. Activities are things like quizzes, e-learning modules, lessons, games, and other types of interactive learning activities. You can use Moodle's built-in features to build things like quizzes, games, and lessons, or you can use software like Articulate or Adobe Captivate to create e-learning modules, complete with SCORM reporting. Moodle has everything you need to create a great class. It just comes down to the creativity and ability of the instructional designer designing the class. Okay, time for a little practice. In the practice activity for this section, I'd like you to go to moodle.org and take a look around the Moodle demo site, available from the About option on the navigation bar. The Moodle demo site will allow you to log in to an actual site where you can see some example resources and activities, and you can even have full access to the administration features. After touring the demo site, go back to moodle.org and browse the gallery of Moodle themes by going to Downloads, then Plugins, and then you'll see an option for themes. Browsing the demo site and Moodle themes will help to give you an even better idea of what Moodle is capable of. Now that you've seen some Moodle examples and should have a much better idea of what it can be used for, let's move on to discussing how to get around. Coming up in the next video, we'll discuss how to use and customize Moodle's site navigation options to make things easy for your students to find. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section I'll get you started with Moodle by teaching you how to find your way around the site using Moodle's navigation options. So let's go ahead and get started. When it comes to finding your way around Moodle, you have two main options, the navigation block and breadcrumb navigation. In this video we'll talk about how to use these options so you're able to find the areas and settings that we'll be covering in later sections of this course. Let's start by taking a look at the navigation block. The navigation block is available from any page in Moodle and makes it easy to quickly find all of the key pages and settings that you'll use often. When you're logged in, you'll have several options in the navigation block. You'll have Home, My Home, Site Pages, My Profile, and Courses. The Home option always brings you back home. The My Home option will bring you to your personal My Moodle site. Site Pages will give you quick access to any of the site-wide pages or reports if you're a teacher or administrator. The My Profile option makes it easy to access anything in your personal profile. And possibly the most valuable option is Courses, which makes it easy to access any courses you have access to, and will even drill down to let you access specific activities within that course. This is probably the most useful navigation tool in Moodle, but the breadcrumb navigation system is also useful to get back to where you just came from, so let's take a look at that next. You won't see breadcrumb navigation on the home page, but as you click on various pages, resources, or activities within Moodle, you'll notice a trail of links appear towards the top of the site. This is the breadcrumb navigation system, which makes it really easy to get back to where you just came from. As you navigate your way through the site, it will create this trail of links so you can easily find your way back to the course site or activity you may have been working on before getting lost in a sea of clicks. Okay, time for a little practice. Get to know Moodle's navigation system a little better by clicking on the various links available in the navigation block, and also test out the breadcrumb navigation. Between the navigation block and breadcrumb navigation, you should have no problem finding anything you need in Moodle. Believe me, these tools will be a big help when you're following along with the demonstrations in later sections. Now that you're familiar with Moodle's navigation system, let's move on to a more complex topic, hosting and installation. That's it for navigating Moodle section, but stay tuned for the next video covering Moodle hosting and installation options. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section I'll get you started with Moodle by reviewing your options for hosting and installing Moodle. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start out by going over some questions to ask yourself that will help you decide whether you want to install Moodle on your own or if you should seek help from a pro. If you do decide to make the leap and install Moodle on your own, we'll discuss the various options you have for hosting and installation. Before deciding that you want to go ahead and install Moodle on your own, there's some important factors to take into consideration. You can save yourself a lot of frustration by asking yourself a few questions before you start the installation process. Do words like MySQL, FTP, or Git repository scare you? If you aren't familiar with these words, you may have a frustrating time installing Moodle. Do you have time to make mistakes? If this is your first time installing Moodle and you don't have time for mistakes, then you might want to seek help from a pro. What are your hosting options? In other words, where are you going to install it? Do you have an account with a web host, or are you planning to install Moodle on your school or organization server? This will be the first decision you need to make before you can start the installation process, and depending on the host you choose, they can make things easier or more difficult on you. So let's talk about some of your hosting options. When it comes to hosting and installing Moodle, there are a couple of different directions you could go with it. You can go with a Moodle partner listed at Moodle.com who specializes in Moodle and can take care of the installation process for you, or you can go with a more of a do-it-yourself approach with a traditional web host. If you decide to go with a Moodle partner, they will usually install Moodle for you on a web server optimized for Moodle, and because they're experts, it's easier for them to help you solve any issues that arise. The downside is that these additional services usually come with a higher price. If you're on a budget and comfortable attacking this on your own, then you could save some money by going with the do-it-yourself approach. Typically, traditional web hosts charge less, but they don't provide the services that you will get with a Moodle partner. Many web hosts make the install process easy for you with what's known as a one-click install, but they typically don't have as much Moodle expertise. If you decide to go with the do-it-yourself approach and set up an account with a traditional web host, then you'll need to make a decision on how you want to upload the files and install Moodle. There are a lot of ways you can go about this, but in general there are 4 common approaches for completing the installation process. If you're comfortable using FTP programs, CVS, or the Git repository, then you can upload the files to your web server on your own and have more control over the upload process. But if you aren't familiar with these methods, then you may want to seek out a host who offers a one-click install. The one-click install can be a lifesaver if you're new to web development because it literally can install Moodle for you in one click. The downside is that you don't have full control over the install process, and you're depending on your host's programming ability. Okay, time for a little practice. Before making the decision to install Moodle on your own, go to Moodle.org and search for the page titled Installing Moodle to learn more about the installation process, or you can go to YouTube to watch videos describing the process. After researching the installation process, decide whether you want to install it on your own, and if so, which installation method is best for you. Once you have Moodle installed, you'll be ready to dive in and start setting up your site. In the next section, we'll talk about how to configure and set up your Moodle site. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle course development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section we'll start setting up your site by going over how to access the site administration settings and describing what they're used for. So let's go ahead and get started. So now you've got Moodle installed, but you're wondering how to configure it for your needs. In this video I'll cover how to access the site administration settings and what the various settings are used for so that you can configure the site for your purposes. First, you'll need to know where the site administration settings are accessed. You'll find all of the site configuration settings in the settings block, which is generally available on any page in Moodle, and you can see I have it right here in the lower left. There are 3 sections in the settings block containing options for different aspects of the site. There's the current page settings, which is the first section here, and this is used to configure the settings for whatever page you're on. If you're on the front page, it will display the front page settings, but if you're on a course site or another page, it will display the settings for that page. Then there's My Profile settings. The My Profile settings section allows users to quickly access or change the information in their profile. You can also access stuff like blogs or instant messaging. And then you have the Site Administration menu. And the Site Administration menu is where you can access all of the overall site configuration settings. So if you need to adjust any site-wide settings, this is where you'll find it. And this is where we'll be spending a lot of time in upcoming videos. So now that you know where the settings are located, you'll need to know what the various settings are used for, so we'll discuss each option in the site admin menu. Let's start at the top with the notifications option, which will alert you to problems with the site, show you which version you're using, and also allow you to register the site with Moodle.org. You can also use the registration option here to enter all the information needed to register the site. Underneath that, we have advanced features, which will allow you to enable or disable some of the more advanced options in the site, such as portfolios or external web services. The users option is used to manage users of the site. You can use this option to do things like add or remove users and also change their permissions. The courses option is where you'll go to add or remove courses or change the overall course site settings. The grades option is used to configure the site settings for grades, such as whether you'd like letter grades or overall percentages. The location setting is used to configure, you guessed it, the geographical location and time zones. The language option is really useful to customize language used on the site and install new language packs. The plugins option is where you'll go to configure the site settings for any of the modules or plugins on the site, such as activity modules or assignment plugins. The security option is where you'll go to configure site policies and security settings, such as the password policy. And appearance is where you'll go if you want to change the theme or anything about the look of the site. So we'll be spending some time in here in later videos. Okay, and underneath appearance we have front page, and we'll be talking a lot more about the front page option in the next section. But this is where you'll go to customize the look and feel of the front page. The server option contains more advanced administration options and allows you to access information having to do with the server settings. Reports is a useful option that will allow you to see what kind of activity the site is getting through the reports and statistics. And finally, the development option contains some more advanced experimental settings for PHP developers. As you can see, there's a lot of settings available for you to look through. If you're ever looking for a setting and you can't seem to find it, you can always use the search function that you see here to look for it. So for example, if I'm looking for something involving statistics of the site, I can go ahead and type in statistics, and then just click the search button. And this will pull up any administration settings having to do with statistics for the site. And as you can see, there's a few here, but here's the one I'm looking for, enable statistics so I can run reports. And this is a big help when you're not sure where the setting is or what it might be called. You can just enter the keyword, then click search. In this video, we'll only have time for a brief explanation of each setting. But for more information, you can go to Moodle.org and check out the Moodle documentation, or you can go to the Moodle forums for more information on each of these settings. If you have any questions not covered here, then you'll definitely find your answer here at Moodle.org. Okay, time for a little practice. Now that you know how to find the site admin settings, spend a little time getting to know them better. Browse through the site admin menu to see what's available, and if you're curious about a setting that you can't find, then use the search function to look for it. And if you're unsure about what these settings are used for, make sure to check out the Moodle docs or forums for more information. Now that you know how to access the site administration settings and what the various options are used for, you're ready to start configuring your site. But before doing that, there's one more important setting you need to learn about. You'll need to learn how to turn editing on in Moodle. That's it for the site admin settings overview. I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle course development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section we'll start setting up your site by going over how to turn editing on. So let's go ahead and get started. Now you know how to access all of the site admin settings and are ready to start editing, but there's one important thing you need to know first. You'll need to know how to turn editing on in Moodle so that you can edit text that appears on the page and add resources and activities to the site. In this video I'll show you how to turn editing on and explain some of the editing options that appear after turning editing on. To turn editing on, you'll need to be logged in as an administrator or a role with editing privileges so that you have access to the settings block. If you're logged in as an admin, you'll be able to go to the Page Settings section, then click the Turn Editing On option. And if you're on a course site like this one, you can turn editing on by using this Turn Editing On button in the upper right corner, or you can scroll down to the Current Page Settings option and turn editing on right here. After turning editing on, you may notice that you have some new options appear on the screen. These are the options you'll use to edit text on the page or add activities and resources. So let's take a closer look at each of these options. If you take a look under the text on the page, you should see this little icon that looks like a little hand holding a pencil. That's the edit icon, and that's what you'll need to click on in order to edit the text, or really anything on the site. Depending on the theme you are using, this icon could look a little different, but most themes use a similar icon, and it's used throughout the site for anything that can be edited. And if I click on the edit icon, it will take me to this page where I can add text or multimedia to my page. And we'll cover this more in upcoming videos, so I'll head back to the front page to take a look at our other editing options. And down here we've got Add an Activity or Resource, which allows you to add your activities or resources, such as a quiz or a forum or maybe a link to a web page. You'll also notice a series of icons appear above the block on each side. You should recognize the edit icon, which will take you to the settings for that block, and you also have the move icon, which will allow you to move the block up or down, the delete icon, the show or hide icon, which allows you to hide or show the block on the site, and the assign roles icon, which allows you to set different permissions for that block based on the roles. And all of these block editing icons will be covered in more detail later in the upcoming video about blocks. Okay, time for a little practice. Get to know the editing settings a little better by turning editing on and exploring the options available. Make sure to check out the edit icon in particular, as you'll be using that often throughout this video series. Now that you know how to access the site admin and editing settings, you should be ready to start working on setting up the front page. In the next video, we'll cover how to change the layout and appearance of the front page. That's it for the Turning Editing On video. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to customize the layout and appearance of the front page. So let's go ahead and get started. Now that you know how to access all of the editing settings, it's time to go to work on the front page. In this video, I'll show you how to customize the layout and what appears on your front page by configuring the front page settings. So let's get started by going to the front page settings, which are accessible by clicking on Edit Settings in the Current Page Settings section of the Settings block. So here you can see Edit Settings right here, so I'll just go ahead and click on that. Once you're in the front page settings screen, you have several settings to choose from that will allow you to change the look, the layout, and what appears on the front page. Starting at the top, you have fields to enter a name and a description for the site. Whatever you put in the full site name field is what will appear in the header at the top of the site. So you can see mine says J. Deegan Consulting, so that's what I have here. And whatever you put in the short name is what will appear here for the home page on the breadcrumb links. And then whatever you put in the description field will appear in the description block on the side of the front page. So this is useful to let users know what the site is used for. And then if you scroll down a little further, you see you have options to choose what appears on the screen for users who are logged in and for users who are not logged in. This is a really nice feature that allows you to display different content based on whether your user is logged in or not. For example, if you don't want guest users to see your available courses or news items, then you could use this option to hide those items from users who aren't logged in. You have options to display news items, which would be posts that you add to the news form on the front page, a list of courses or course categories, or a combination list of courses and course categories. If you want to display all these items, then you would select each one using the drop-down menus. And it's important to select them in the order that you want them to appear on the site. For example, if you want the courses to appear at the top of the home page, then you need to select that first. And then whichever items you select underneath it is what will appear underneath the list of courses on the front. So I select a list of courses first, and then news items, so my courses will be towards the top, and then news items will be underneath that. So let's try a couple of different layouts for logged in users and users who aren't logged in to give you a better idea of how this works. For logged in users, we'll set it to show a list of courses, and how about news items underneath that? And then for non-logged in users on the front page, we'll set it to none so that nothing appears. So this would be a good example if you don't want people who don't already have access to see your courses or any news listings. Then after changing those settings, we'll scroll down to the bottom and click Save. And so you can see right here it says Changes Saved. So now I'll go back to home page to see what happened. And then right now I'm logged in, so you can see I have the list of courses here. And then if I scroll down further, I have my site news. Nothing's been posted in it yet, but it would be there if I posted anything. So now let's log out and see how that changes. Okay, now I'm logged out and I can't see any courses or the news listings. So that's a good example of how you can change what appears on the front page based on the user's role of whether they're logged in as a student or if they're just a guest. And like I brought up in the last video, you can also customize which blocks appear, where they appear, and who they appear for by turning editing on and using these editing icons. And these icons are covered in more detail in the next video covering blocks, so make sure to watch that video to learn more about how you can customize the blocks and the sidebars of your page. That's the key settings for choosing what appears on the front page, but if you go back to the front page settings, there's also some options for choosing how the course and news listings are displayed, so that if you have a lot of classes or a lot of news listings, you don't end up with a really long page. And that about sums up the front page settings. Okay, time for a little practice. Now that you know how to access and configure the front page settings, it's your turn to customize the front page of your Moodle site. Think about what you want logged in users and non-logged in users to see on the front page, then set it up so it's customized for your needs. By configuring the front page settings, we're able to customize what appears on the front page, so you can create a front page ideal for your users, whether they're logged in or guests. Next, we're going to talk about how you can customize your site further with blocks. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn what blocks are and how they can be used to customize your site. So let's go ahead and get started. So far you've learned how to access all of the editing settings and customize what appears on the front page. In this section we're going to discuss how to customize your site further with blocks. Blocks are the sections or blocks of information you see on the sidebar of Moodle sites. As you can see, I have a few blocks used for different purposes on each side of the page, but there are many more blocks available by default on Moodle, and there are even more that can be downloaded from Moodle.org. Let's take a look at how to add and remove blocks, and you'll be able to see what other blocks are available in a standard install of Moodle. To add or remove blocks, first you'll need to turn editing on. And you can see I'm already in editing mode, but if it said turn editing on here, you would need to click it. And then after turning editing on, you'll see this add a block appear down towards the bottom of the page. Click on the drop-down menu and you'll see a variety of blocks available to you. To add it, all you need to do is select it from the list. So I'll go ahead and use, how about this latest news one as an example. So all you do is select it from the list, and then you'll see it appear down here at the bottom. Now once it's on the page, and since you're already in editing mode, you have these edit icons appear. And you can use these to move them up or down, edit the settings, delete it, or show or hide it, or also override permissions. For example, if I want to move the block up or down, or to the other side of the page, I'll click this move icon, and then I can select where I want it to go just by clicking in the box you see here. So if I wanted to put it here up towards the top, I can just click there, and after a second or two, it'll appear there. Or if I want to configure the settings for the block, I can just click this edit icon, and it'll take me to this settings page where I can configure the settings for the block. And these settings will be different depending on what type of block it is, but you'll always be able to access them using that same edit icon. And then if we go back to the course page, we can add another block that comes in real handy, and that's the HTML block. So if I select HTML from the Add a Block menu, it'll be added down here to the bottom, and then you can see it says New HTML block, but if I want to add a title and some text or links to other resources or other multimedia, I can click on this edit icon, and then from here I can add a title. I'll just call it the HTML block for this example. And then you can add text here, or you can add links or other multimedia. And then you can configure its settings here. I just wanted to display on the front page on the left side, so I'll just leave those options as is. And then I'll click Save Changes. And then after clicking Save, you can see it's added here. So this is a great resource if you just want to add some additional information or access to other resources. And it's also important to know that these blocks are not only available on the front page. A lot of these blocks are custom designed for course pages, and you can easily add them using the same steps to your course page. So that's where blocks like the course completion status come in particularly handy. So make sure to not only think about what you can add to your front page, but what blocks can you add to your courses to improve their effectiveness. Okay, time for a little practice. Now that you know how to add and configure blocks, explore what blocks can help improve your site by adding them and deciding if it's something that will be helpful. If not, go ahead and remove it. This will teach you more about what types of blocks are available and give you some practice adding and removing blocks. Now that you know how to add and remove blocks, you're able to customize the layout of your site and add tools that can be helpful to your users. In the next video, you'll learn how to give people access to the site so they can start taking advantage of what you're putting together. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one covering how to give users access. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to give users access to your Moodle site. So let's go ahead and get started. So now you've got your front page all set up, and you need to give users access so you can start putting it to use. In this section we'll use the Users option to add users to the site and change their permissions. When it comes to creating accounts for users, you have a couple of directions you could go. You can have users create the accounts for themselves, or you can create the accounts for them. If you'd like users to be able to create their own accounts, you'll need to go to the Plugins option in the Site Admin menu. So I'll go to Site Administration, and then Plugins. And then from the Plugins menu, you'll choose Authentication, and finally Manage Authentication. Then once you're in here, you want to make sure email-based self-registration is set to Enable. So if you see the eye icon like you see here in the Enable column, that means it's enabled. And then after doing that, you'll need to scroll down And in the self-registration drop-down menu, you'll need to set this to email-based self-registration. And what this will do is add a new option to your login page so that users can create a new account. So let's go ahead and take a look at that option after I save the changes here. So just go ahead and click Save Changes, and then now we'll go ahead and take a look at that new Create New Account option that will appear. Okay, so now that I've enabled that option, you can see I have this new section here labeled, Is this your first time here? And it has instructions for a new user who'd like to create a new account. So we'll just need to follow these instructions, then click Create New Account. So now let's go back to the site and take a look at how to add or remove users manually. To add or remove users manually, you'll just need to go to the Users option in the Site Admin menu. So I'll click on Site Admin, then Users, then Accounts, and then of course add a new user. And then from here you'll need to fill out all the profile information, especially the required fields, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom and click the Update Profile. After entering all the profile information and clicking the Update Profile button, you'll need to notify the user of their new name and password so that they can go ahead and log in. If you have several users that you would like to upload and enroll in courses simultaneously, then you can use the Bulk User Upload option. In order to use this function, you'll need to create a CSV spreadsheet like this one I have here. The key fields you'll need are the first name, last name, username, password, and email. There's also several other fields that you can use to enter more profile information or enroll the users into courses and groups. You can see your options for spreadsheet fields on the User Upload page at moodle.org. Now that we've got our spreadsheet created, we'll go back to the site and we'll go back to our Users option, and we're going to look for this Upload Users option. From here, you'll upload your CSV spreadsheet, and then you'll click Upload Users. So I'll go ahead and add mine now. Okay, so here's my user upload spreadsheet, and then I'll click Upload this file. From here, you have a few options for your spreadsheet. In most cases, your CSV spreadsheet will use a comma CSV delimiter and UTF-8 encoding, so you can go ahead and leave these settings at their default. If you're using a different type of delimiter or encoding, then you'll need to adjust these settings, and then click the Upload Users button. So I'll go ahead and click that now. Okay, and here is who I have in here. I have Johnny Tester, and it lets me preview. But the main options you'll want to pay attention to are Upload Type and Existing User Details. It's important to pay close attention to these options so you don't accidentally overwrite any existing accounts. And then after you've got everything set, you can scroll down to the bottom and click Upload Users. And this will create the users and enroll them in any courses you had specified. Okay, so I can confirm that Johnny Tester was created, and now I'll click Continue. And that's all there is to it. So now let's take a quick look at options you have for assigning roles and permissions after users have been created. So if you go to Users, and then Permissions right here, and you have several options, but let's take a look at the Define Roles option so you can see the various roles available in the system by default. So I'll click on Define Roles, and as you can see, there's several types of roles, all with different types of permissions. And the different types of permissions allow them to do different things within the site. When a user account is registered, that user is assigned the role of authenticated user by default. But if you want them to be able to do things like create courses or grade assignments, then you'll want to assign them the role of teacher or course creator. And you can learn more about what each role can be used for by reading the descriptions here, or you can go to moodle.org to get even more details about what each role can be used for. And once the user has registered an account, they'll have access to the front page as an authenticated user. But if you want to assign them to a different role for all pages and courses on the site, then you can go down here and use the Assign System Roles option to assign them a role for the entire Moodle site. If you want to give them access to a specific course or increase permissions for a course, then you need to assign them a role in that course site. So to assign a user a role like a student or a teacher in a specific course, you'll need to go to that course site. So I'll go ahead and open up a course site now. And then once you're in the course site, you'll need to go to the Users option in the Course Administration menu. So I'll click Users, and then we'll want to click the Enrolled Users option. And then from here, we can see everybody who's already enrolled in the course and what their roles are right here. And if we want to enroll some new users, we'll click the Enroll Users option. And the first thing we'll need to do is select the role that we want to assign. So far, everybody enrolled in the course is a student. So let's try enrolling a teacher, just so we can try that out. So I'll select Teacher, and then I'll enroll the admin user for the teacher. So I'll click Enroll, and that's it. Now I can just click Finish Enrolling Users, and the admin user will now be listed as the teacher for the course. So I can look here and see admin user is the teacher, while all these other users are the students. So now that the admin user is enrolled as the teacher, they can grade assignments and edit the course site. Okay, time for a little practice. Now that you know how to create accounts and assign roles, go ahead and create accounts for colleagues or students that can test your site. After creating the accounts, assign them roles such as student or teacher for a course so you can see how their permissions are different. In this video, you learned how to create accounts for users and how to give them different levels of permission. Now you'll be able to give users access so you can start putting your site to use. In the next section, we'll start working on creating courses on your Moodle site. That's it for now. We'll see you in the next video titled Creating Course Categories and the User Experience. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to organize your courses with course categories. So let's go ahead and get started. Now you've got your front page set up, so you're ready to start working on building your courses. In this video, you'll learn how to create and organize course categories so your courses are organized and easy to find. Course categories are used to categorize all of the courses on your Moodle site by subject or topic. If Moodle was a book, then categories would be the chapters. So the first step in creating a course site in Moodle is to create a category for the course to exist in. So let's go ahead and take a look at our options for creating course categories. To create course categories and courses, you'll need to go to the Courses option in the Site Admin menu. So I'll click on Site Admin, and then Courses, and then Add Edit Courses is the option you're looking for. So as you can see, so far I only have a miscellaneous category, which isn't very descriptive of the courses available on my site. So I'll go ahead and create a new category that'll make it easier for users to find what they're looking for. To create a new category, I just need to click the Add New Category button that you see right here. And then after clicking the Add New Category button, all I need to do is enter a category name and a description. You also have the option to make your category a subcategory by using the Parent Category option. This is a great option if you have a category with a lot of courses that you'd like to organize into subcategories. For example, if you have a math category that you may want to further break down into subcategories for algebra, calculus, and geometry, then you can create categories and subcategories using this option. So I'll go ahead and enter my information now. And then after entering the name and description, I'll just click Create Category. And now I'm in my course category for math, but there's no new courses created. So if I go back to the courses screen, I should be able to see my new category there. So now you can see miscellaneous, which is what was there already, and now I have math. So then I can go ahead and add any categories for algebra, calculus, geometry, or whatever else I want to add under that math category. So let's go ahead and set up an algebra subcategory so that you can see how they work. So to create the subcategory, I can click Add New Category here and select Math as the parent category, or I can go into the Math category, and then from here you'll see the Add a Subcategory option. So I'll go ahead and click Add a Subcategory to add my algebra subcategory. And then you can see from here I already have Math as the parent category, and that's the key to making it a subcategory of Math. So I'll go ahead and leave that as is, but if I wanted to make it, say, a subcategory of Miscellaneous, then I'd select Miscellaneous as the parent category. But obviously we want Algebra to be a subcategory of Math, so I'll go ahead and leave that as is, and then enter Algebra as the category name. Then after that I have the option of giving it an ID number and a description, so I'll go ahead and do that now. And then once I'm done entering all the information, I just click Create Category. And then now if we go back to the Courses page, we'll be able to see our Math category with the new Algebra subcategory right underneath it. After creating the new course category, you can edit or rearrange your categories using the icons located to the right of each category. For example, if I wanted to change the name, description, or the parent category, then I can click on this Edit icon, and I'll be brought to this screen where I can make the changes. Or if I want to rearrange the categories that have been added, I can click the arrow button to move it up or down. So after clicking the arrow up, you can see now Math is the top category. Or if I want to get rid of the category completely, I can just click this Delete icon to remove it. And now you can see after clicking Delete, the Algebra category is gone. As you begin to have more course sites, you may need to use these options to help keep your courses organized and easy to find. Okay, time for a little practice. Learn more about course categories by creating at least one category on your Moodle site. After you create the category, test the editing options so you can see what each option does. Now that you know all about course categories, you're ready to move on to creating your course site. In the next section, you'll learn how to add a new course and configure its settings. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to create course sites. So let's go ahead and get started. You've got a course category created. Now you're ready to create the first course for that category. In this video, you'll learn how to get started by adding a new course site and configuring its settings. As you saw in the previous video, course sites can be created by going to the Courses option in the Site Admin menu. So I'll go to Site Admin, then I'll scroll down a little bit and go to Courses, then Add Edit Courses. And from here, you just go to Add New Course. And then after clicking the Add a New Course button, you're brought into this course site settings where you'll need to enter all of the details and configure the settings for your new course site. So we'll start at the top with the category and the name for the course. In the last video, you should have created a new course category on your Moodle site. The category option is where you would select that category, place your site into. And then after selecting the category, I'll go ahead and select Math here. After selecting the category, you'll need to enter a full name and a short name for your site. So enter the full title for the course site in the full name field, but for the short name, you may want to abbreviate that a little bit. After entering the name, you have the option to enter an ID number for your course if you'd like to. And it's always a good idea to enter a summary of what your course is about using the summary field. This will make your site a little more user-friendly so students know what the course is going to be about. So something nice about the summary field is that it gives you these options to format your text or also add multimedia like graphics or video. Then after entering the summary, you'll need to scroll down and you'll need to select which kind of format you want, whether it be weekly, topics, social, or SCORM. The two most popular formats are topics and weekly. The topics format allows you to organize your course into sections, and the weekly format allows you to organize according to a weekly schedule, which is useful if you'd like to organize the course site, but what needs to be completed each week. The next setting you'll need to configure is the course layout. If it's a long course with a lot of content, then you may want to choose show one section per page. But if it's not a real long course, then you can choose to show it all on one page, which is normally the most common option chosen. Now we'll choose how many topics or weeks we want on the course site. For example, if your course has 5 sections, or it's 5 weeks long, then you'll select 5 from this menu. If you choose the weekly format, it's important to select the course start date so that the dates for each week are correct. And then beneath the course start date, you have the option to choose if you want hidden sections to be completely invisible or shown in a collapsed form. And also, each course site comes with a news form where you can post course news and information. The News Items to Show option allows you to choose how many items you want to appear listed on the course site. Each course also comes with a gradebook, which is where the grades for all activities and assignments will appear. So if you want your students to be able to check their grade for each assignment, then you'll want to select Yes from the Show Gradebook to Students option. The Activity Reports option is something we'll talk more about later, but it's used for teachers and admins to view the activity of their students in the course site. And the last option in the General section is the maximum upload size, which allows you to limit the size of files uploaded by students for assignments or by teachers. And then next we'll move down to the Guest Access section. The Guest Access section is used to give users access who haven't logged into the site, or you can limit access to guests who have a password. You'll need to be careful with this option if you're concerned with the security of the site. Then beneath the Guest Access section, you have options for using groups in your site, which is useful if you want to organize content and reports according to any kind of groups. This is great if you need to sort students according to department, class, or any type of group you may need. Next, we have the Availability option, which allows you to block access to the course if needed. This is a useful feature if you need to block students from the course while you're working on it. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, the Language section allows you to choose which language to appear on the course site. And the final option all the way down here at the bottom is role renaming. If you want to name your roles for teacher and student different from what is in Moodle by default, then you can go ahead and do that here. Then after you configure all the settings, just go ahead and click Save Changes, and you'll be brought to a screen where you can enroll users. We'll talk more about enrolling users later, but this is where you would enroll your students or anybody else that you want to give access to the site. For now, we'll skip enrolling users and come back to it later so we can go ahead and set up the course site before we give students access. So we can get to our new course site by clicking on the name of it in the navigation block. So I can see here it is right here. I named it Test 1 and I put it in the Math category. So I'll go ahead and click on that and it'll bring me to the new course site. Okay, and here we are in our new course site. You can see I chose weekly topics with 5 sections, so I have the 5 sections here listed according to the dates. Okay, now it's time for a little practice. Go ahead and create your own course site. Then test out the various configuration settings to see how it affects the overall layout and look of the course site. In this section, you learned how to add a new course site and configure its settings. Now that your course site is configured and created, you can move on to the next video where you'll learn how to edit the course site. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to start editing your course site. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now you've got a course site created, so you're ready to start editing. In this video you'll learn how to access and use the editing features on your course site. Once you've got your course site created, one of the first things you'll want to do is to start adding text and graphics to the page. In order to do that, you'll need to turn editing on, just like we did to edit the front page so that you can access all the editing options. On a course site, you can quickly access the Turn Editing On button in the upper right corner. Or you can also go down to the Current Page Settings block and access it right here, Turn Editing On. So I'll go ahead and click that. Now that I've got my editing options, I can start adding text to the page by clicking the edit icon in the section that I want to add text to. So I'll go ahead and click the edit icon so I can start adding some text. After clicking the edit icon, I'll be brought to this page where I can enter a name and the content that I want displayed in that section. So we'll start out by entering a name for the section. If you leave the default section name option checked, like you see here, then Moodle will use the default name, which would be topic 1, 2, or 3, depending on which section it is on the course site. So if you want to give the section a different name, then you can unselect this option and type in the new name here. And then after entering the name, you can enter the content of the section in the field you see here. And something great about this is you have all these tools to do things like format text, add multimedia, graphics, and tables. After entering all of the content, you can click Save Changes, and you'll see it appear on the course site. So I'll go ahead and click Save Changes. And there you have it right there on the course site. Now if I wanted to move this section, say I wanted to move this example section down to the bottom of the page, I can click on this Move icon and drag it down to where I want it to be. So if I wanted it all the way at the bottom, I would drag it down here and then drop it. And as you can see, it's been moved. And I can also go in and make more changes just by clicking the edit icon like I did to begin with. After adding your text and graphics, the next step in setting up your course site is to add any activities or resources you would like to use as part of the course. So once you've got editing turned on, you'll be able to access options to add activities and resources in each section of the course, as you can see here. All you'll need to do is just click on the Add an Activity or Resource option, and then you'll be brought to this page with a whole menu of activities and resources. We'll talk more about these options later in the course, but to add one of these activities or resources, you simply select it from here. So I'll click on Glossary, and then you go down here and click the Add button. But if you'd like to know more about what each of these activities and resources are used for, you can read the description here. Then after clicking the Add button, you'll be brought to the settings page for that individual activity or resource, where you can start setting it up for your purposes. Make sure to stay tuned for the Adding Static Course Material and Adding Interactive Course Material videos for more information on these available activities and resources. One other thing you may want to do on your course site is customize which blocks appear, remove them, or move them around. So as you can see, you have your typical options. You can edit, delete, move, or hide these blocks. And you should also have the Add a Block section appear in the lower left side of the site when editing is on. And you can use this to add any other blocks that are already available in the system. And like I said, we'll talk more about this later. But for now, you can take a browse through the menu and see what's available to you. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and start editing your course site by adding text or graphics to the page, reading the descriptions for various activities and resources, and learning more about what blocks might be beneficial for your courses. Now that you have your course site set up, you're ready to start giving people access by enrolling them as students and assigning teachers. We'll learn all about that in the next video called Enrolling Students and Assigning Teachers. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to the Moodle Course Development video series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this section you'll learn how to give students and teachers access to your course site. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now you've got your course site all set up, and you're ready to start putting it to use by enrolling students and assigning teachers. In this section you'll learn how to use the Enroll Users option to give students and teachers access to your new course site. To access the Enroll Users option from your course site, you'll need to scroll down to the Settings block and then click on the Users option. After clicking on Users, you'll find your options for enrolling and managing users in the course. When it comes to enrolling students in your course, you have options to enroll them manually, or you have self-enrollment options that will allow students to enroll themselves. And we can access these options by clicking on the Enrollment Methods option that you see here. And then after clicking on Enrollment Methods, you'll see these options for manual enrollments, guest access, and self-enrollment. The manual enrollment option is enabled by default. But if you want to give guest access, or if you want to set up self-enrollment so that students can enroll themselves, then you'll need to click on the Show icon for the method you want to enable. So if I want to enable students to enroll themselves in the course, then we can click on the show icon for self-enrollment to enable it. Then once it's enabled, I'll click on the edit icon to access the various options for self-enrollment. And as you can see, there's several options for self-enrollment. You can allow students to enroll themselves with an enrollment key during a certain time period, or you can even limit self-enrollment to a certain time period. So for more information on each of these options, click on the question mark icon to learn more. And then after configuring the self-enrollment options, you can just scroll down and click Save Changes. Then your students will be able to enroll themselves in the course. So now let's go over how to manually enroll users in a course using the Enrolled Users option, which is accessible by clicking on Users and then clicking on the Enrolled Users option. And you'll be brought to this screen that may look familiar from when you first created the course site in the last section. If you've already enrolled users in the course, you'll see their name listed here. But since we haven't enrolled anybody yet, there's nobody there. So to enroll new students in the course, you'll click the Enroll Users button. And you'll be brought to this window where you can select the role and which users you'd like to enroll. In most cases, you'll be using the student role for the users that will be participating in the course. Or you may want to assign them to be teachers if you'd like them to do things like grade assignments or set up the course site. But for this example, I'll go ahead and select student. And then after selecting the role, you can go ahead and select the users to enroll by clicking the Enroll button next to each of their names. So I'll go ahead and enroll these test students by just clicking the Enroll button. Okay, so you can see I enrolled test student 1, 2, and 3, so they no longer have enroll buttons available. And then now if I go back to this screen and allow it a second to refresh, you'll see they now appear as students in the course. So this is everybody who is listed, who is enrolled or even has access to the course. And then you can see the roles here. So if you had some teachers also in here, or one teacher in most cases, you would see it would say teacher right here. So now that we have our students enrolled, let's add a teacher who will be able to manage the course. So to add a teacher, we'll go back to the Enroll Users option. And this time we'll select Teacher from the Assign Roles drop-down menu. So I'll go ahead and select Teacher here. And we'll go ahead and select Johnny Tester to be our teacher. So we'll click Enroll. And now if I click Finish Enrolling Users, it'll take me back to this screen, and Johnny Tester will now be listed with the role of teacher. So now that Johnny Tester is the teacher, he's able to do things like look at grades, grade assignments, respond to forum posts, and do all those things that you'll need teachers to do. And then once you've enrolled users, you also have other options in the Users menu item to add them to groups or change their permissions. The Groups option is helpful if you are facilitating group assignments, or if you're in a corporate setting where you might want to organize students by department or what position they have. For example, organizing students into groups makes it so that you can sort grades in the gradebook by group, and it also makes it possible to conduct forum or workshop activities where you want students to only be able to view posts or assignments from other students within their group or their department. Okay, time for a little practice. Now that you know how to enroll users, go ahead and enroll some students and possibly assign a teacher to your course. In the next section, we'll cover how to add static course material so that you can start making resources available to your students. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development series. In this video, we'll cover how to make resources such as links to files or web pages available to your students. Now that you've got your course site created, you can start adding some content for your students. In this section, we'll start off with the basics by using the Add a Resource or Activity option to add links to files or web pages on your course site. The first thing you'll need to do is turn editing on in the course site that you'd like to add the link to the file or web page to. So you should have the Turn Editing On button right here in the upper right, and you should also have it in the Settings section right here at the top. So I'll go ahead and click Turn Editing On. And then after turning editing on, you'll have the option to add an activity or resource, as you see here all the way down the side of the site. So go ahead and click on the Add an Activity or Resource option, and you'll be brought to this window where you'll have the option for File to add a link to a file. And if you want to add a link to a web page, like Google or Wikipedia, then you'll select the URL option. So for this example, let's start by choosing the File option, and we'll set up a link to a file. So I'll select File, and then I'll click the Add button. And if you read the description here, you can see more about what you can do with a link to a file. So I'll click Add. The first thing you'll need to do is enter a name and description for the file, and the name is what will appear on the course site. So you'll want to pick something that makes sense to your users. For this example, I'm just going to put test example. And then you'll also need to enter a description here about what the file is. So this description may not be seen by your users unless you check this option that says Display Description on Course Page. So if you want the description to appear on the course page, then you'll check this. but normally just the name is enough, so I'll leave that unchecked, and then I'll go ahead and enter a quick description. Okay, now I've got my name and description entered. I'll scroll down, and this is where I'll need to select the file. And I can select the file that I want to create the link to, either by dragging and dropping it here directly from my computer, or in most cases you'll just use this add option, and it'll bring you to this screen where you can add a file that's already loaded to the server or to your site somewhere, or you can upload something from your computer using this part of the screen here. So for this example, I'll upload a file I have on my computer. So to do that, I'll click Browse, and then I'll just locate the file I want to use. And then after selecting the file, you can enter more information about it here, and then once you're done, you'll just click Upload this file. Okay, and there you see I have my file displayed right here. So now that we've got the file uploaded, we'll be brought back to the settings page where we have a few more options for how we want the file to be displayed. If you click on the Display drop-down menu, you'll see that there's several options for how you want the file to be displayed. For example, you can choose to embed the file in a window within the Moodle site by selecting the Embed option, or you can choose the Force Download option, and this will give your students the option to download the file to their own computer. Or you can choose to have the file pop up in a new window by choosing the In Pop-Up option. You have a lot of options for how you want it to be displayed, so make sure to click on the question mark icons for more information on each of these display options. And then after configuring all the settings, the last step is to click the Save and Display button that you have down here. Or you can click the Save and Return to Course button if you just want to be brought back to the course site to see how the link to the file works. So I'll go ahead and click Save and Return to Course. And there it is. You can see our new PowerPoint, the test example, is added right here. So now let's go back to the Add an Activity or Resource option to add a link to a web page. So I'll just click Add an Activity or Resource, and this time I'll select URL instead of File. So I'll click URL, then Add. Then after clicking Add, you'll be brought to this screen where we'll add a name and a description for the link, just like we did when adding the file. So I'll go ahead and enter a title and a description here. And then just like with the file, you have the option of whether you want the description to appear on the course page. We'll just have the name appear, so we'll leave that unselected. And then you'll enter the URL here. And this can be any type of website you'd like. So if you have some type of educational website or something like Wikipedia that you want users to use as part of the assignment. So I'll go ahead and enter my link here. And then down here you have some options for how you want it to be displayed, just like you did with the file. You can have it embedded in the site, or you can have it pop up in a new window. If you do select to have it popped up in a new window, you have options for the width and height and how you want it to appear. And then further down the page, we have some more advanced options called parameters and common module settings that we're not going to cover for now. This is something for more advanced users that you may not even use. So once we're done, we'll go ahead and we have the same options for Save and Return to Course or Save and Display. And again, if you want to save it and be brought back to the course, you'll just click the Save and Return to Course button. Okay, now we have easy access to the web page and the PowerPoint right here on the course site. If I click on the PowerPoint, it'll give me the option to open or save the file since I chose the Force Download option as the display option. If I click on the web page, it'll open up the web page in a new window since I chose to have it pop up in a new window. So this is a great way to make resources available for your students so you can give them some information to read ahead of time and then maybe have them do something like a quiz or just come to class prepared to discuss the topic that's covered in these resources. Okay, now it's time for a little practice. Go ahead and add a link to both a file and a web page to your site, then test out the various display settings so you can understand the various options. In this video, you learned how to use the Add an Activity or Resource option to add a link to a file and a web page on your course site. In the next section, you'll learn more about making resources available for your students by using files and file repositories. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle course development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video I'll introduce you to repositories and how you can use them to share files and other resources across your site. Now that you've learned how to add files to your course site, you'll want to know how to bring in more content, and a great way to do that is with repositories. Repositories in Moodle make it easy to access files and bring other content into your site from external resources such as Flickr, YouTube, or Google Docs. So we'll start by showing you how to access file repositories. Then we'll cover how to enable other repositories in your Moodle site so you can start making some great content available for your students. As you saw in the last video, if you go to Add an Activity or Resource to add a file, so I'll click Add, and then I go down here to the File Picker by clicking Add, then you'll be brought to the File Picker where you can see the repositories that are enabled on your site by default. And at top we have the Server Files repository. And this is where you'll find files that have already been uploaded to this course, or really any courses on the site. If you look at the top here, you see you have these file systems right here. And this will allow you to access files that have already been uploaded to other courses. So if I want to access a file that's been uploaded to another course in the miscellaneous course category, I can click on miscellaneous, and then I'll find the other courses here. So if I click on activity and resources, and then folder of files, you can see I can actually add this example PowerPoint from another course right here. And this is just a really popular repository to use for files that have already been uploaded to the site. You also have a recent files repository, which is handy for accessing files that have been recently uploaded to your Moodle site. Then you also have the private files repository. That's great for teachers or course creators to store their own private files. And you'll also see that I have here on my screen the SCORM demos repository, which is a custom repository that I created. But these aren't the only repositories available. So let's go take a look at what other repositories are available and how to enable them by going to the site admin block. So I'm going to exit out of here. And then if I go down to the site administration section and plugins, then repositories and manage repositories, I'll be brought to this screen where you'll see all the repositories available. So now the ones I just discussed, you can see they're selected as enabled and visible. But if I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see I have some other options here. Well, quite a few other options like Flickr and Google Docs and Dropbox are all disabled. So if I wanted to enable one of those, for example, if I wanted to enable YouTube videos, I would just go to this drop-down menu and select Enabled and Visible. You can also use Enabled but Hidden, but in most cases you'll want to use Enabled and Visible so that everybody can put it to use. So you'll select that, and then you can also go to Settings and modify any of the settings that you want, but we'll just go with the default. And then after doing that, you don't need to click Save or anything, it's all set. So let's go take a look at how that works now. So if I go, let's say I'll go back to my course, and if I go to somewhere where I can add a video, so if I click Edit here, and to go into the HTML editor where I can access this video icon right here, so I'll click on this video icon, and then I'll click the Find or Upload button, and now I can see that YouTube repository available for me right here. So I can use this to search for videos and then make them available on my site. So let's do a quick search for, how about educational technology? And then I'll click search. And here's a great one. Looks like history of technology and education. So let's say I wanted to add that. All I would do is click on it. And then I'll click select this file. And then sometimes it'll give you a preview, but I'll go ahead and click insert. Now you can see it right here. So if I click save changes, now I have that video right here available on my site. I didn't even need to do any HTML code to embed it or anything. Just because I added that YouTube repository made it that easy to add a video to my site. So that's how you use repositories to enable more content and make resources available for your students. Okay, time for a little practice. Start by uploading files or other resources to the existing server files repository. Then try enabling other repositories you may be interested in and start adding some content to your site. In this video, you learned how to access, enable, and use Moodle repositories. In the next video, you'll learn how to create more content for your students by composing web pages. That's it for now, and we'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video, you'll learn how to compose a web page in Moodle. In the last section, you learned how to add files to your course site, but now you may be wondering how to create content for your students with custom web pages. Lucky for you, Moodle makes it easy to create custom web pages with the HTML editor. To compose a custom web page, you'll need to start by turning editing on as usual. So I'll go ahead up to the upper right and click Turn Editing On. And then I'll need to use the Add an Activity or Resource option to add my web page. So I'll click on Add an Activity or Resource. And then I'm looking for the Page option down here in the Resources list. So I'll click Page and then Add. And now we're brought to the page settings screen where we'll start by adding a name and a description as usual. So I'll just call it my test web page. Then I'll enter a description. And then after entering the name and description, I'll scroll down to the page content section where all the magic is going to happen. So this is where I'm going to put all my content for the web page. The nice thing about using Moodle's HTML editor is that you don't need to know any HTML code to create a page. You can simply type in text like I am here, then use these options in the toolbar to do things like add images, videos, and tables, just to name a few things. But if you are familiar with HTML, then you can use this HTML button that you see here to toggle to HTML mode where you can enter code. But for now, I'm just going to use the normal what you see is what you get editor, so we don't need to use HTML code. And the first option I like to use when creating a web page is to toggle to full screen mode. So if you see this little button right here that says toggle full screen mode when you hover your mouse over it, I'll go ahead and click that. As you can see, now I'm in full screen mode where I have a lot more room to create my page and I'm not bound to that little tiny box. So let me go ahead and get the page started by entering some text in here. I'll go ahead and copy and paste some text in here just to get things moving, but that's something you're going to want to be careful with, because if you copy and paste directly from a program like Microsoft Word, then you'll have some formatting issues. So I always recommend copy and pasting into Notepad or some other kind of note program, and then into the HTML editor. So I'll go ahead and paste it in here. And so now that I've got some text, I'll go ahead and add an image. And the easiest way to add an image to the screen is by using this image icon right here. So I'll click the Insert Edit Image icon. And then from here, I'm going to want to click on the Find or Upload an Image button. And then now we have all the repositories that we talked about earlier. So if you have a repository with an image that you wanted to use, or if you wanted to use something like the Flickr repository, you'd be able to choose it from here. But we'll go ahead and upload something from my computer. So I'll click the Browse button, and then I'll find this Moodle logo. And then after selecting it, I'll just click Upload this file. Okay, and there's my image. Now I also have these tabs up here, Appearance and Advanced, if I want to change how it looks. So let me click on this Appearance one. And the big one you'll want to pay attention to is alignment. So right now it's not set. We'll change it so it's aligned to the left. And you can see here it gives you a preview of how it looks. So you could mess with the dimensions also to change the size. So if you wanted to make it smaller, you can say change this to 300 pixels. And because I have it set to constrained proportions, it'll also automatically adjust that. And then something else I like to adjust is the space. So I'll set that to 3, just to see how it looks. And you can see that changes things a little bit here. Okay, so now I got everything how I want it, so I'll go ahead and click Insert. Okay, and here I have my image down here. It's down at the bottom, but I actually want it at the top. It is aligned left like I asked it to, but if I just want to move it up to the top, I can simply drag and drop it all the way up here. Now it's all the way equal with the top. Now if I did have more text, so let me actually add some more text in there. You see it's in line with it there. So now my custom web page is well on its way with some text and a graphic, but maybe I'll add a video just to make it a little more useful. To add any type of video to the page, you'll just click on this icon here that looks like a film reel, and it actually says Moodle Media. So I'll go ahead and click that, and then just like with the image, I'll use this Find or Upload button. And then for this example, I'll use the YouTube repository since that makes it real easy. So I'll just go ahead and click YouTube over here, and you'll have to have this enabled on your site for it to be visible. So I'll click YouTube, and then let's search for a video explaining what Moodle is. So I'll search for what is Moodle and see what we come up with. Okay, and we've got quite a few options here. How about I'll just go ahead and start with this first one. And I'll select it, so I'll just click Select this file button to select it. And it'll show you a preview here, but we'll just click Insert to actually add it to the page. So right now it just looks like a link, but once I save it, you'll see that it's actually there. So I'll turn off the full screen mode so I can go back to the regular settings screen. Okay, and you can see all my content there, and if I scroll down, you'll see the link to the video. And then you also do have some options for how the page is displayed, but we'll go ahead and skip that and cover it later. And I'll go ahead and click the Save and Display button so you can see how the final web page looks. And here it is. Just like that, I have my page together with some text, a graphic, and a video. That's how easy it is to create a custom web page in Moodle. Not too bad for a page quickly thrown together. With a little more thought, I'm sure you can make something much more useful for your students. Okay, time for a little practice. Try creating your own custom web page using Moodle's HTML editor. Start by adding some text and graphics, maybe a video, or maybe even a table to help organize the content on the page. In this video, you learned how to create content for your students with a custom web page. In the next video, you'll learn how to use the book resource to make a larger amount of content available to your students. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle course development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to create a Moodle book to share information with your students. In the last video, you learned how to share content with your students by composing a web page. But what if you have several pages or even chapters of content that you'd like to share with your students? Well, a great resource for sharing a lot of content is the book resource. So let's take a look at an example of a book resource so you can see what I mean. Okay, so here I have an example of a book resource right here. So I'll go ahead and click on it so we can see what it looks like. All right, and you can see right here on the main part, I've got the core of my page. And what I've got on the left here is the table of contents. So this is a great way to display any type of multimedia or text, and then set up a nice table of contents that makes it easy for your students to navigate. They can also navigate through by clicking these arrow buttons here. So overall, the book resource is an easy way to share a lot of content and a resource that's easy for your students to access and use. You can add text, graphics, video, or anything you can do on a web page to each of these pages, and it's easy for students to navigate using the arrow icons or the table of contents. So let's go back to the course site and create a Moodle book. As usual, to add the book or any type of resource, you'll need to start by turning editing on, and then we'll click the Add an Activity or Resource option. And then from here, you'll select the first resource in the list, the book, and then I'll click Add. And then after adding the book, you'll need to start by entering a name and description, of course, so I'll call it My Test Book. And then after entering the name and description, you can scroll down where you have some more display options. From here, you can choose how you want the chapters to be displayed, if you'd like to use custom chapter titles, and if you'd like the chapters to be indented. I'll go ahead and leave them at their default settings, then click the Save and Display button so I can start creating my book. You can always change those options later. Then after clicking Save and Display, you'll be brought to this screen where we can start creating the first chapter of our book. So the first thing I'll need to do is enter my title. So I'll call this the first chapter. Now obviously you'll want to use something more descriptive. And here is where you'll put the content. And just like with a web page, you have all of these handy icons here to help you add text or graphics, videos, tables, and to format your text. So I'll go ahead and get things started by adding some text, and then how about a graphic and some videos? Okay, so now I've got my text in there, so I'll go ahead and use the image icon to add an image, but I want to add it to the top of the page, so I'll bring my cursor up top here, and I'll click Insert Edit Image. And then as usual from here, I'll click Find or Upload an Image. And then I'll go to Recent Files and use this Moodle graphic I just recently added. So I'll click that, and then I'll click Select this file. And of course, I'll want to enter a description. And then I'll want to click on the Appearance tab to adjust how it appears. So I'll want it to appear left, and I'll keep it at the same size. So I'll go ahead and click Insert. Okay, now I've got my Moodle graphic and my text in there. I'll go ahead and click Save Changes, and then we'll do another chapter after this. All right, so here's my first chapter. You see I've got all the text and the graphic here, and I've got the beginnings of my table of contents. You can see it's labeled First Chapter. And Moodle automatically adds in these arrows so I can start navigating. But right now I only have one chapter, so there's not much to navigate to. So to add another chapter, I'll need to go to these icons you see here, and you can see I have the plus icon to start a new chapter. And then I've also got icons to hide, delete, or edit the first chapter. But I want to create my second chapter, so I'll click the plus sign. And then just like last time, I'll need to start by entering a title. So I'll write second chapter. And then you'll also notice that you have a subchapter option here underneath the title. And that's used if you wanted to make this chapter a subchapter of the previous one. So you could use this if you have a lot of chapters and you want to organize the structure so that you have chapters and subchapters. But we're going to go ahead and skip that for now since we're only adding a couple of chapters to this book. And then I'll go ahead down here and enter my content. So I'll start by entering some text. And then how about on this page, we'll add a video. And like I said, you can add any type of multimedia that you can on any web page. So really the sky's the limit. So I'll go ahead and click the Moodle Media icon, and then the Find or Upload a Sound. And I'll use the YouTube repository again, and we'll look for another Moodle video. And how about we go with this Why Moodle video down here that I know is a pretty good one. So I'll click on that, and then select this file. Then Insert. Okay, so now I've got my text, and then once I click Save, my Moodle video will also be there. So I'll click Save Changes, and I've got my second chapter done. And there you have it. So you can see I've got the text and then the video that I quickly added. So now I've got my first and second chapter in the table of contents, and I've got my icons here that make it easy to navigate through. So obviously you'll want to add a lot more chapters, but that's just a quick overview of how to create a book. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and create your own Moodle book with at least 2 or 3 chapters, and make sure to use multimedia like graphics or video in your book. Now that you know how to create a Moodle book, you're able to make some great content available for your students. In the next section, you'll learn how to take things up a notch by adding interactive course materials. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to create quizzes in Moodle so that you can assess your students' performance. In the last section, you learned how to add static course materials to your site. Now it's time to make things a little more interactive with quizzes. So let's start by taking a quick look at an example of a Moodle quiz. As you can see with a Moodle quiz, you can ask several different types of questions and use all kinds of media along with your questions. And the best thing in many teachers' opinion is that it can also do all the grading for you. So quizzes are easy to add to any course site using the Add an Activity or Resource option. So as usual, we need to turn editing on first, and then I'll click Add an Activity or Resource here to add it to my second section. So I'll click that. And then I'm looking for Quiz in the Activities menu, which you'll see right here. And then I'll click Add. And then after clicking Add, you'll be brought to this screen where you can enter a name and introduction for the quiz. So I'll go ahead and enter that info now. Okay, and after adding the name and introduction, we can scroll down to the Timing section. And this is where we have the options to configure when the quiz will be available for students. For example, if you don't want your students to be able to access the quiz until another day, you can set that date in the Open the Quiz section, and then set a date and time for it to not be available to students using the Close the Quiz option. Another useful option here is the Time Limit option, which allows you to set a countdown timer for the quiz. The next configuration settings we have available are the grade settings, which allow you to categorize the grades, set an attempt limit, and also determine the grading method. And then if we scroll down, the next settings we have is the Layout section. And the first setting in the Layout section is Question Order, which allows you to shuffle the questions randomly, or you can keep them in the same order that you set them up to be in. You also have the option to spread your questions out across several pages. So let's go ahead and move down to the Review Options section and talk about some more options you have for feedback. The Review Options section allows you to determine what students will see when they're reviewing the quiz. For example, if we leave all of the checkmarked options as is, then students will be shown the correct answers, feedback, and also points scored immediately after they complete the quiz. Later on, maybe after everyone has completed the quiz or after the quiz is closed, if you want to adjust any of these options, you'll just need to uncheck anything that you don't want the students to see. Then if we scroll down to the Display section, this also allows you to determine how various aspects of the quiz looks to students. And then I'll scroll down to the next section of settings, which allow you to restrict access to the quiz based on certain conditions. And our next set of options down here are for the overall feedback on the quiz. And something great about these options is it allows you to give different feedback based on whatever your student scored. For example, if you want to give students who score 80% or less a different message, then you can type 80% into the grade boundary field and then type your feedback here. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll down to the end of our long list of quiz settings. And now that we have all of our settings configured, we'll click the Save and Display button so we can create our quiz questions next. After clicking Save and Display, we're brought to this page, which is actually the quiz, but at this point we don't have any questions created yet, so we'll need to start by clicking Edit Quiz so we can start creating questions. So I'll go ahead and click the Edit Quiz button now. From here you can get started creating the quiz questions by clicking the Add a Question button or the Add a Random Question button. And you'll only use the Add a Random Question button if you have categories of questions or question banks created in your Moodle site. For this example, we'll just click the Add a Question button and start creating our questions from scratch. After clicking the Add a Question button, you have several different question types to choose from. But let's start off with multiple choice, since that's one of our more popular options in Moodle. So I'll click multiple choice, and then I'll click the Next button. Okay, and then after clicking Next, I'm brought to this screen, where I have all of my options for creating a multiple choice question. The first thing you'll need to do is enter a name and select a category for the question. So I'll go ahead and enter a name for my question. And now I can scroll down here and go ahead and write out my quiz question in the question text field. So I've added my text, and if I wanted to add any images or video or format the text, I can use these options up here. As an example, if I want students to view a video, then answer quiz questions about the video, then I could click on this video icon and add a video, and it'll be displayed embedded in the question, which makes it easy for your students to view the video, then answer any questions about it. You could also do the same type of thing with something like a geography test, where you might want to include an image of a map to go along with their geography questions. And so after writing out the quiz question, you also see this option for default mark, which allows you to enter how many points you want this question to be worth. And then we have the general feedback section, which allows you to enter feedback that will appear for the question no matter what the student's answer was. And then under the general feedback section, you have options to allow multiple answers or shuffling the answer choices, and also how you want the choices to be numbered. Now we can start entering our answer choices and the specific feedback for each answer if you'd like. So I'll go ahead and enter my answer choices now. And then after entering the correct answer choice, I'll need to change the grade option to 100% if this is the correct answer. So because this is the correct answer, I have choice 1 set to 100%, and then I'll set the wrong answers, I'll leave them as none because I don't want to give them any credit if they got the wrong answer. So and then I'll leave the grade none, and we'll scroll down to the combined feedback section. This is where I can enter any feedback for any correct response, partially correct response, or any incorrect response. And then after entering the feedback, our next option allows you to apply a score penalty for each attempt of the quiz. And then another great option that Moodle has for quiz questions is to give a hint, which is useful if you want to give your students a little help for something like a practice quiz or an activity. Now I've got all of my information entered, so I can click Save Changes to save my new multiple choice question. Okay, now I've got my first quiz question created. I can see it right here, my test multiple choice question. Now we can add our next question by clicking the Add a Question button again. Repeat the process with whichever question type you choose. And once you're done creating all of your quiz questions, you're done and can go back to the course site to see how the quiz looks. So let's go ahead and do that now. And then as you can see, I have my test quiz right here. To see how it looks, I can just click on it. And then I'll be brought to this screen where I'll go ahead and click Attempt Quiz Now. And there it is, I can see my quiz. That's it for creating a quiz. Obviously, you'll want to add a lot more questions and learn more about the different question types, but that's the basic process. Okay, time for a little practice. Learn more about quizzes by creating your own quiz with several different types of questions. And make sure to read the descriptions and test out various question options so you're aware of all the options available to you. In this video, you learned how to make your course more interactive with quizzes. In the next section, you'll learn how to make another type of interactive activity called a lesson. But that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to use Moodle lessons to make your courses more interactive. In the last section you learned how to create quizzes, and now you'll learn how to use the Moodle lesson activity to provide a different type of assessment or activity. So let's start by taking a quick look at a completed lesson. Okay, so here we are in a lesson, and as you can see, it's a great way to create a presentation or a branching lesson with a series of web pages with quiz questions built in. In this example, I have a video embedded in the first page of the lesson, along with a question about the video so that students can watch it, then answer the question. And after answering the question, they can be given feedback, then continue on to the next page of the lesson. And something that's great about the lesson feature is that you can create a branching lesson by controlling which page the student will navigate next based off of their answer to the question. So let's go back to the course site and I'll show you how to create a lesson. Lessons are easy to add to any course site using the Add an Activity or Resource option. And as usual, we'll need to turn editing on first, and then we'll be able to use the Add an Activity or Resource option. Okay, so now that I'm in editing mode, I can add my lesson to section 2 by clicking Add an Activity or Resource, and then I'll need to look for Lesson underneath the Activities section. And here we have it right here. And then after selecting Lesson, we'll click Add. And then after clicking Add, you'll be brought to this screen where you can enter a name and start configuring the settings for the lesson. So I'll start by entering a name. Then after entering the name, the first option I have is to enable the time limit if I'd like, but I'm just going to leave it disabled for this example. And you can also limit the dates that it's available using the Available From and the Deadline settings. And then the next setting we have is Maximum Number of Answers, which allows you to determine the maximum number of answer options you want to provide on lesson questions. Then in the next section is where you can configure how many points you want the lesson to be worth using the grade option. Then if we scroll down a little further, you can see that we have some more grade options. So now let's scroll down and take a look at our flow control settings, which allow you to configure how the lesson is navigated. Okay, and if I scroll down, the next option we have is pop up to file or web page, which allows you to choose a file or web page that you would like to have pop up in a new window for your students to use while they're completing the lesson. And this is a cool way of giving them a resource that they can use to complete the lesson. Then the next set of options allow you to give access dependent on the student completing another lesson in the course, or spending a certain amount of time on a different lesson. And once I have all of my settings configured, I can just go down here and click the Save and Display button so that I can start building my HTML pages and quiz questions for the lesson. So I'll go ahead and click Save and Display. After clicking Save and Display, we're brought to this screen where we have some options to import content and quiz questions, or we can start from scratch by creating new content pages and quiz questions. But for this example, we'll start from scratch by creating our own content and our own questions. And when it comes to creating the content from scratch, you have a few options. You can add a content page, a cluster, or a question page. The difference between a content page and a question page is that a content page will only have your content with no question. Question page will have content and then won't allow the student to continue in the lesson until they answer that question. So we'll start by adding a content page, and then I'll show you how to add a question page to follow that. So to add a content page, I'll click the Add a Content Page option. And then after clicking the Add a Content Page option, I'm brought to this screen where I can start by entering a title for the page. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then this is where I'll put all the contents for page. And as usual, I have my HTML editor with all these options for formatting text or adding multimedia like videos or graphics. So I'll go ahead and add some quick text here just so we have something to show on there. Okay, so I've got some text, and I'll also add a quick video just so you can see how it looks like with some content. Okay, now that I've got my page content entered, I can go ahead and scroll down where I have all these content fields, which are used to give your students options to click on when they're done with the content. And this will allow them to navigate to the next part of the lesson. They have several content fields, which allows you to give your students several options for which page they want to go to. So for example, if you have several pages in your lesson, and you want to create a branching lesson by giving your students various options that go to different pages, you can do that by putting an option for each of the pages using these content fields. So at this point, I don't have any other pages created, so I'll just put an option to go to the next page in the Content 1 field. So I'll just go ahead and type next page, and then I want to select next page from the jump menu. And that means when the student clicks on the word next page, they'll jump to the next page. And this is also what you would use to choose other pages or to choose random pages. Okay, now that I've got the next page option selected, I'll go ahead and scroll down and click Save Page. And after clicking Save Page, I'm brought to this screen where I can see the page I just created, and I have this drop-down menu where I can choose to create another page. So this time, let's create a question page by selecting Question from this menu. And after selecting Question, the first option I'll have is to select a question type. So you have a lot of options such as multiple choice, which is one of the more popular ones. And then you've also got essay, matching, numerical, short answer, and true, false. Let's go ahead and do a multiple choice question for this example. So I'll select multi-choice, and then I'll click the Add a Question page. And as usual from here, I can enter my page title. So I'll say this is a test question page. And then I'll enter my page contents using my handy HTML editor. I'll skip the graphics on this one, but you could do it using these options. And I'll start putting in my answer options in the Answer 1 and Answer 2 field. You can see you have several options for answer fields. So I'll say my first answer option is the correct answer. And then we'll go ahead and leave this as Moodle auto format. And then whatever you put in the response field is feedback that will be given to the student after they select that as the option. So we'll go ahead and we'll write great job since that's the correct answer. And then because it's the correct job, we want them to continue to the next page, and we'll give them a point of 1. You can make it any number of points, such as 10 or more, but we'll just go with 1 point. And then I'll put my wrong answer option here. And then for the response, I'll put sorry, that's incorrect. And since they got it wrong, we'll make them stay on this page and review the content again so that they can learn what the correct answer is. And finally, we'll scroll down and click Save Page. And there you go. You see I've got my test question page that I've just added now. So now I've got 2 pages. I've got the test lesson content page and the question page. Now let's go to the preview option to see how it looks. So I'll just click on the preview tab up here. And here's a preview of my lesson. So you can see this is that first content page I added with some text, and I added the video. And because it's a content page, all I have is the next page button. If you'll remember, I typed in next page and chose it to go to the next page. So after reviewing the content, then the student will click next page, and then it'll bring him to the question page that I created with some content and then the correct answer and wrong answers. So I'll click the correct answer and enter submit. And there it is, great job. So that's a lesson. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty similar to setting up a quiz once you figure out how to create content pages and question pages. Okay, time for a little practice. Get to know the Moodle lesson a little better by creating your own. Make sure to test out different content and question pages, and maybe even try creating a branching lesson so you can see how it works. In this video, you learned how to make your courses more interactive with lessons. In the next video, you'll learn how to use another type of activity called an assignment. That's it for now. We'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video I'll show you how to add another type of Moodle activity called an assignment. In the last video, you learned how to create a Moodle lesson. Now you're going to learn how to create a different type of activity called an assignment that can be used to communicate tasks, collect work, and also provide feedback. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at an assignment example. The assignment activity has options for having students upload a file to submit as the assignment, or it can provide a field for students to enter online text as the assignment. So let's head back to the course site and create an assignment. As usual, we'll need to turn editing on, and then we'll need to use the Add an Activity or Resource option. So I'll click Add an Activity or Resource to add it to Topic 2, and then I'm looking for the assignment option at the very top of the activities list. So I'll select Assignment, and then click Add. After clicking Add, we'll be brought to this screen where we can configure the settings for the assignment. So we'll start by entering the name and description like we did with the other activities. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then after entering the name and description, we can scroll down to the assignment settings section where we'll configure how we want the assignment set up, what exactly we want the students to submit. So the first couple of options allow you to set the dates that the assignment can be submitted. Then the Always Show a Description option makes it so that the description we entered above will be displayed at the top of the assignment screen. The Prevent Late Submissions option does just what it says. It prevents students from being able to submit an assignment after the due date. And the Require Students to Click Submit button will provide a submit button for students to click after they upload the file or enter their online text. And then the Notify Graders About Submission is a great option if teachers want to receive an email when an assignment has been submitted. Okay, now let's move down to the submission settings where we can determine what type of assignment it is. And the first two options we have here are online text and file submission, which allow you to select if you want students to submit a file for the assignment, enter online text, or if you want them to do both. Usually teachers will do one or the other, but for this example, we'll go ahead and select yes for both of these options, so that the student will have to both enter online text and submit a file. And then the next option we have is maximum number of uploaded files, which will allow your students to upload more files if you want them to turn in more as part of the assignment. And then finally we have submission comments, which is a nice feature if you want your students to be able to enter a comment as they're uploading the assignment or entering their online text. And then we have the feedback settings section, where if you select yes for feedback comments, then teachers will be able to enter comments about the assignment when they're grading it. And the next section down is grade. And this is where you can determine how many points it's worth. I'll go ahead and leave mine as 100 because that's a good number. And then you want to select the grading method. So you have simple direct grading is the most common one, but you can also use marking guides or rubrics. I'll just go ahead and leave mine as simple direct grading. And then I just need to click Save and Display. And then after clicking Save and Display, I'm brought to this screen, which is the teacher's or administrator's view of the assignment. And as you can see, it makes it easy for you to access the assignments that have already been uploaded. When students access the assignment, they won't see this screen. So let me go ahead and log in as a student so you can see how it'll look for them. Okay, now I'm logged in as a student, so I'll go ahead and click on my test assignment that I have here. And the first screen they'll be brought to is this one, where they can see if they've already submitted something and if there's a grade. So I'll go ahead and click Add Submission as if I'm a student submitting my assignment. Okay, and because I selected both to have online text and file submissions, you can see I have both of those. So I'll go ahead and complete the first part by entering online text. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and submit my file. Okay, so I've got my online text entered and my assignment file uploaded. So then I'll click Save Changes. And clicking Save Changes will submit the assignment. Okay, and now as a student, I can see my assignment has been submitted for grading. So now that I can see my assignment is submitted, I'll go ahead and log back in as a teacher so I can see the student's completed assignment, then enter a grade for it. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Okay, and now that I'm logged in as the teacher or an administrator, I can go back to the test assignment and see what's been submitted. Okay, and from this screen, I can see that there's 3 participants in the class. And there's been 1 submitted and 1 that needs grading. So I'll go ahead and click this View Grade All Submissions option so I can see the assignment and grade it. Okay, so I have my 3 students here, and there's 1 here that's submitted for grading. So I can see it's highlighted, so I need to edit that one, or I need to grade it. But to enter a grade and feedback, we'll need to go to this Grade Edit option and click on the Grade option. And from here, we can access the file. So if it was something like a Word document, we would click on it here and read their Word document, and we can do any grading we'd like. And then we want to enter the grade here. So let's say this was a perfect assignment. So I'll give 100%. And I'll go ahead and click Save Changes. And now you can see it's been graded. I have 100 out of 100. And that's all there is to the assignment process. Okay, time for a little practice. Now it's your turn to set up an assignment. And then after adding the assignment to your course, try logging in as a student so you can see the submission process from their point of view. In this video, you learned how to add another type of Moodle activity called the assignment. In the next video, you're going to learn how to add a multimedia-based assignment with SCORM/AICC modules developed with authoring tools such as Articulate or Adobe Captivate. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle course development series. In this video, you'll be learning how to configure SCORM modules to work on your Moodle site. In the last video, you learned how to add the assignment activity to your course. Now you're going to learn about a more advanced activity type called a SCORM package. So let's start by taking a look at an example of a SCORM module set up on a Moodle site. Something important to know about the SCORM assignment is that the content is not created within Moodle. You have to use separate software such as Articulate, Adobe Captivate, Lectora, or any other e-learning authoring tool that is SCORM 1.2 compliant. It does require additional software, but SCORM tutorials are a great way to make content more feature-rich and interactive with different types of media and quizzing features while still tracking students' activity and their scores using Moodle. Because Moodle is SCORM 1.2 compliant, the possibilities are really endless depending on your abilities and the software you have access to. Learning how to use SCORM authoring software would require a whole separate class, So for the sake of this tutorial, we're only going to cover how to make the SCORE module work on your Moodle site. So let's go back to the course site, and we'll say that we already have our SCORE module published and ready to be added to our course. Just like adding any other activity, the first thing you'll need to do is turn editing on, and then we'll use the Add a Resource or Activity option. So I'll go ahead and click Turn Editing On, and then we'll say I want to add it to this first section here, so I'll click the Add an Activity or Resource option. And then I'm looking for this SCORM package option that you see here. So I'll click SCORM, and then I'll click Add. And then after clicking Add, we'll be brought to this screen where we'll want to start by entering a name and description. And then after entering the name and description, we'll need to scroll down so we can upload the SCORM package and then select it. Now there's a very specific set of files that need to be zipped into what we call a SCORM package, and you'll need to follow the instructions for your specific SCORM authoring software to make sure you have the correct files in a zip package. So I'll go ahead and select the SCORM zip package that I already have uploaded to the system. So to do that, I'll click Choose a File. If you haven't already uploaded the SCORM package to a Moodle repository, then you'll need to upload the file using the Upload a File option so that you can select it to be used. And I've already got it uploaded in a SCORM Demos repository, so I'll select it here and you can see it's a zip file. And then I'll click Select this file. Okay, and there it is selected there. So then we'll move down to the display settings, and the first thing you'll need to decide is if you want the SCORM module to appear in the current window, like it's embedded in the site, or if you want it to pop up in a new window. I'm going to go ahead and select current window for this example, so I can avoid any problems with pop-up blockers. And then if we scroll down, we've got the Student Skip Content Structure page. When students access the SCORM module, you have the option of bringing them to the Content Structure page. The Content Structure page is an introductory page where they may be able to read a description and see the structure of the module. If you'd like them to skip this, just select Always from this menu. And I'll select Always so that they just go straight into the SCORM module. And then Preview Mode allows students to preview the SCORM module before they complete it for a grade. If you want to make sure your students complete it for a grade and don't accidentally preview it, then you may want to select No from here so they don't make that mistake. And if you want students to see how the sections of your SCORM module are structured on the Content Structure page or in the player, you can select Yes for these options. But now let's move down to the grade settings, where we can configure the grading method and how many points it's worth. And just like with a quiz, you have several options for how many attempts are allowed and how the grade is determined for those attempts. I usually like to give students the highest grade they scored, but you also have several options here. Now we can scroll down to the additional settings section, where we can start by configuring how many attempts we want to allow. I'll go ahead and leave it so my students can complete it an unlimited number of times, and the system will keep their highest score. If you are using the Content Structure entry page, you can choose to have your students' completion stats displayed so that they can see if they have credit for completing it or if it's incomplete. And then we have the Force Completed option, which is used if the SCORM package doesn't handle multiple attempts well. This option can force it completed if your SCORM package tends to get stuck on incomplete after multiple attempts. The Force New Attempt option is also a useful option if you're allowing multiple attempts. This option will make it look like each attempt is a brand new one. If you're limiting the number of attempts, then you may want to use this Lock After Final Attempt option so that they can't access it anymore once they've made their final attempt. And the last option in this section is Auto Continue, which can be used to automatically bring the student to the next SCORM package in the course if there is one. Since I don't have any other SCORM packages on the site, I'll go ahead and leave this as No. At this point, we have all of our key settings configured, so we can go ahead and click Save and Display to see how it looks. Okay, and because I'm the administrator, it brings me to the Content Structure page at first. And so if I want to enter it, I'll go ahead and click Enter here. And there it is, and you can see I have all of these options on the side, and that's because I chose to have the menu displayed and to have the navigations appear. If I didn't select to have the navigation and content structure displayed, then it would look something more like this, and your students can use the navigation options that you've built into the SCORM tutorial to use it. Okay, now it's time for a little practice. If you have SCORM authoring software available, test it out with Moodle by setting up a published SCORM module. If you're not familiar with SCORM authoring software, then do a little research to see if it's something you may want to offer on your Moodle site. In this video, you learned how to configure SCORM modules to work on your Moodle site. In the next section, you'll learn how to make your courses more social by adding social activities. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to make your courses more social with forums. In the last section, you learned how to add interactive course materials to your Moodle course site. Now you're going to learn about a different Moodle activity called Forum. Forums are a great way for teachers to communicate with their students and for students to communicate with each other by posting comments. And something great about forums is that they can be used as graded activities so that teachers can give their students credit for participating in the forum.
So let's start by taking a look at a forum that I have set up here on my example site. So I'll click on Forum. And this is just an example forum that I threw together. So there's only a couple of posts so far, but this will give you an idea of how it looks. If I click on the title of a post, it will take me into the contents of the post. That can be text, or you can also even include multimedia like I have in this other post. Let's take a look at that. So you can even throw in videos or images or other types of multimedia. And if you scroll down, you'll see the replies from other participants of the course who added the replies using the reply option that you see down here. And after a post has been added, your students can go to the forum to read the reply, or you can set up email subscriptions so that they receive a notification through email when a new post or reply has been added. Okay, so now let's head back to the course site, and I'll show you how to add a forum to your course. And as usual, you'll need to start by turning editing on so you can access the Add an Activity or Resource menu. And then if I want to add it to section 3, I'll click Add an Activity or Resource, and then I'll select Forum from the Activities menu and click the Add button. And then after clicking Add, we'll be brought to the Forum Settings screen where we can start by entering a name for the forum. Then after entering the name, we'll need to select the type of forum we want it to be, because you actually have several options. The most common option is Standard Forum for General Use, which is what we'll use for this example, but you also have options for a single simple discussion, which is a great option if you just want your students to reply and not create new discussion topics. You also have each person post one discussion, which makes it so students can only post one discussion topic that others can reply to. And then there's the Q&A forum, which is a cool option that forces students to first post their perspectives before they can view other posts in the forum. And our last option here is Standard Forum displayed in a blog-like format, which is great if you want to set up a group blogging activity or if you just want to set up a course blog. So I'll go ahead and select Standard Forum for General Use, and then we can enter our introduction. And this is where you'll want to enter something like a welcome message and any instructions for completing the forum activity. So I'll go ahead and enter my welcome message and instructions now. And if we scroll down, you can see that we have an option for setting up subscriptions so that students are notified through email about new posts. If you leave it as optional subscription, then students will have an option in the forum that they can click on if they'd like to subscribe. You also have the options to force subscriptions or disable subscriptions as well. And then the next option we have is read tracking for this forum, which if turned on will highlight posts that you haven't read yet, which makes it easy to know which posts you need to get to. And then the next couple of options allow you to limit the size and number of attachments that you want to allow students to add to their post. And attachments are a great way to provide additional information or just resources to your post. If you want to limit the number of posts that your students can add to the forum, then you can use these settings in the post threshold for blocking section to enter exactly how many posts you want to limit them to. And then if we scroll down to the grade section, you can add the forum to a grade category if you're using them. But if you are using the forum as a graded activity, then you'll want to use the settings in the rating section to determine how you want the grade to be calculated. If you don't want to use it as a graded activity, then you'll want to leave the aggregate type set as no ratings. If you do select an aggregate type, such as maximum rating, then you'll want to use the scale section to select how many points you want it to be worth. So I'll go ahead and say this is going to be worth 100 points. And the last option we have here is for group mode, which is a great feature if you're using groups in your course, and you only want students to see posts from other students within their group. If you aren't using groups, or you just want to make sure your students are able to see all posts from all other students, then you can leave this setting as no groups like you see here. But if you do have groups, you'll want to use separate groups, and separate groups are used if you don't want them to be able to see each other's posts. Or you can use visible groups, which allow you to sort the posts by groups, but also allows the students to see posts from within other groups. But I'll go ahead and leave mine as no groups. And then once we have all of our settings configured, we can scroll down and click the Save and Display button to see our new forum. And here we are in our new forum, but at this point no posts have been added, so we can get the conversation started by clicking the Add a New Discussion Topic button, and then we'll use the HTML editor to add text or multimedia to our post. So I'll go ahead and enter a subject, and then I'll put the content of the message here, and like I said earlier, you can use these buttons here to add any graphics or multimedia. And then if we scroll down, we have the subscription and attachment options that we talked about earlier. And like I said, you have the option to determine if you want this to even appear here. So if you don't want to give your students access to add attachments or subscribe, you can change how we selected the settings. And then once you're done entering the content of your message, you'll click the Post to Forum button, and your post is successfully added. And that's all there is to adding a new forum, which is a great way to add some social interaction to your courses. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and create your own forum, and then make sure to test out the different forum types and configuration settings so you know all that's available to you with the forum activity.
In this video, you learned how to add forums to your Moodle courses. In the next video, you'll learn how to add another social activity called the chat module. And that's it for now, so we'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to make your courses even more social using the chat module. In the last video, you learned how to create a forum for your Moodle course. Now you're going to learn how to use a different type of activity that allows teachers to facilitate live chats with their students. The difference between forums and the chat module is that the chat module allows you to conduct live synchronous discussions with your class, while forums are used for asynchronous discussions. Let's start by taking a look at this screenshot of a Moodle chat where you can see your participants, George Clooney and Johnny Depp, displayed on the right side, and then their chat post displayed on the left in a real-time conversation. And this is a great tool if it's difficult to meet face-to-face with students. Okay, now let's head back to the course site and we'll add a chat to our Moodle course. And as usual, we'll need to start by turning editing on, then using the add an activity or resource option to add our chat. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and add it to section 3 by clicking add an activity or resource, and then I'll select chat from here at the top of the activity menu, and then click add. And then after clicking the add button, I'll be brought to this chat settings page where I'll start by entering a name and an introduction message for the chat. And then after entering the name and the introduction, I'll need to scroll down and use the next chat time setting to enter the date and time for the chat. So I'll say that mine's going to be on October 13th. And then I have the repeat sessions option, which allows you to set up repeat sessions if you want to have a recurring chat, maybe weekly or daily. The Save Past Sessions setting allows you to save the transcript of the text in case you want to share it with students who couldn't make it at the scheduled time, or if you just want it for future reference. And depending on what you want to use the past sessions for, you can use the Everyone Can View Past Sessions option to determine exactly who gets to see it. And then down here at the bottom, you have your common module settings, where you can decide if you want to separate your chats by groups if you're using groups in your course. And then once I'm done with all the settings, I'll scroll down here and click the Save and Display button. And then after clicking Save and Display, I'll be brought into this page, which is the entry page for my new chat. And once I'm ready to start the chat, I'll click this option that says click here to enter the chat now. And then I'll be brought into my chat. Okay, and here I am in the chat, and as you can see, I'm the only one logged in right now since I'm just doing a test. And if I want to enter a message, I'll scroll down here and enter a message. Then click the Send button. And then you'll see the message appear here in the main part of the screen. And that's all there is to setting up a chat. After the chat session has taken place, you and your students can access the chat logs in case they weren't able to make it or if they need to refresh their memory on what was talked about. So to access the chat logs from here on the course site, you just click on the chat. And then you'll see this option for View Past Chat Sessions. And you'll only see that if you selected to save past sessions when creating the chat. So I'll click on the View Past Chat Sessions. And then you can see here I have no complete sessions, but if I click this List All Sessions, I'll see the example one that I set up. And then here it is right here. So if I want to see all the details of what was talked about in the chat session, I can just click this option here to see the session. And the ability to conduct a live chat session, then provide access to the chat logs after, makes the chat activity a great tool for holding discussions with students online, and then also making it available to anybody who wasn't able to make it. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and set up your own chat. And if possible, schedule a time with students or maybe other teachers to practice using the chat module so you're prepared to use it in an actual class. In this video, you learned how to use the chat module in your Moodle courses. In the next video, you'll learn how to add another social activity called a wiki. And that's it for now, and we'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video, you'll learn how to make your courses even more social using wikis. In the last video, you learned how to use a chat in your Moodle course. Now you're going to learn how to use a different type of activity called a wiki. The wiki activity allows teachers to create a page or a series of pages, or they can be used for groups of students to collaboratively work on pages as a group. This is a great way to facilitate group work where you want groups of students or the entire class to work on a page as a team. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at an example of a wiki in Moodle. Okay, and I'll go ahead and click on my example wiki here. And this will bring me to the first page in my wiki. And obviously you can create several pages that are accessed by clicking on the Map tab here. And you also have other tabs here to edit, add comments, view the history of the page, and other administrative features. And with a wiki you can enter text or graphics or multimedia like videos. But the greatest thing about it is that it makes it easy for students to work on projects as a group and to create a lasting resource. Okay, now let's head back to the course site and we'll go ahead and add a wiki to our course.
And as usual, we'll need to start by turning editing on so we can access the Add an Activity or Resource module. And if I want to add it to, say, Section 4, I'll click Add an Activity or Resource here. And then I'm looking for the Wiki option down towards the bottom of the Activity menu. So I'll select Wiki, then click Add. And after clicking Add, we'll be brought to the Wiki settings page, where we'll start by entering a name and a description for our wiki. And the description field is a great place to enter a description of what your wiki is going to be used for, or instructions for students to edit the wiki. And then after entering the name and description, we'll scroll down to the Wiki settings section, where you'll want to start by entering the name for the first page of your wiki. And your wiki can end up being many pages, so you'll need to get it started by entering a name for the first page. And then after entering the name for the first page, we'll need to decide if we want it to be a wiki that students and teachers work on collaboratively, or if it's going to be edited by only one individual. If we want students to work on it collaboratively, then we'll select Collaborative Wiki from here. And then I'd recommend leaving the default format and force format options as they are now. HTML is the most common format, so you'll definitely want to leave that in there. If you want to force it so that that's the only option, then you can select the force format option here. And then once we have all of our settings configured, we'll click Save and Display. And then after clicking Save and Display, you'll be brought to this page where you can start working on the content of your first page. And as usual, you have all these options to format text, add graphics, or other multimedia to your wiki page. So I'll go ahead and enter some content here. And then after entering the content of your page, you'll want to scroll down and enter some tags for your page so it's easy to find when there ends up being a lot of pages. So tags are going to be something that are just descriptive of what this page is about, such as the content or just anything descriptive. And then after entering the tags, you can click the preview button if you want to see how it looks before clicking save. But if you're happy with the content you have in there, then you can go ahead and click save to create your first page. Okay, and here's my first page. You can see I titled it Page 1, and this is the text I entered. And like I said, you could also use graphics or other multimedia like videos to enter other information. And then we also have our options up here to edit the page if we want to make any changes. We can use the Comments tab to add comments about it if we want to discuss the content of the page. And the History tab to see older versions of the page. And then if we have more pages, we can use the map to view those other pages. And then from here in the map, you can see I only have my one page, but if I had more pages, they would all be listed here. If I want to continue working on this by adding more pages, I can go over here to the left, and I have this New option under the example wiki here. So I would click New, and then I'd enter the content for my second page. Then after creating more pages, you want to create links from page to page by creating a menu on the first page of the wiki, or you can add hyperlinks within the other pages so that students can easily navigate within the wiki. If you don't set up links to other pages, your students will need to know that they'll need to use the Map tab in order to access the other pages. And that's it for creating a wiki. So using this feature, you and your students can collaboratively work on some great resources. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and create your own wiki, then test working on it as a group with students or other teachers, and think about how you might be able to use it in your courses. In this video, you learned how to create and use Moodle's wiki activity. In the next video, you'll learn about another activity that allows you to conduct collaborative workshops. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to make your courses more social with peer assessment using the Workshop module. In the last video, you learned how to create collaborative resources in your Moodle courses with the Wiki activity. Now you're going to learn how to use a different type of social activity called a workshop to facilitate peer assessment activities. So let's take a look at an example of a workshop so you can get a better idea of how it can be used. As you can see, there are several phases of a workshop. There's the setup phase, where the teacher sets up the workshop for their purposes. Then there's the submission phase, where students submit their work. And then after the submission phase comes the assessment phase, where students can assess each other's work or their own depending on how you set it up. And then the next phase is the grading evaluation phase, which is when the final submissions can be graded by the teacher. And finally, there's the closed phase, and that's when the workshop and grading is complete. And this is a great way to facilitate peer or self-assessment before the student is required to submit the final version of the assignment for grading, either by their peers or their teacher. So let's head back to the course site and we'll set up a workshop for our course. And as usual, you'll have to turn editing on, then use the Add an Activity or Resource option to add a workshop. So we'll add ours to Section 4 down here. So I'll click Add an Activity or Resource. Then I'm looking for the Workshop option, which is at the bottom of the Activities menu. So I'll click on Workshop, and then I'll click Add. And then after clicking Add, we'll be brought to the Workshop Settings page where we can enter a name and introduction for our workshop. Okay, now we'll scroll down to the Workshop Features section, where we can customize how our workshop will function. And the first option allows the teacher to provide an example of the assignment for students. And the Peer Assessment option is what will allow you to set up peer-to-peer evaluation for the assignment. And the Use Self-Assessment option will allow you to set up an activity where they can assess their own submission prior to grading. So for this example, we'll just set it up as a peer assessment. And then we can scroll down to the grading settings section, where we have options to enter the number of points for submitting the assignment and points for assessing their peers or their own submission as well. For example, if you want to give them points for submitting the assignment and points for assessing their peers' assignment, then you would use these settings to do so. And next, we can scroll down and enter some instructions to give students for submitting. So the instructions you enter here will appear on the screen where they're going to be submitting their assignment at. And then next, you'll need to scroll down and enter some instructions for the assessment part of the workshop. And this is whether they're doing peer or self-assessment. So the instructions you enter here will appear on the screen where they'll be doing the assessment. And after entering the assessment instructions, if you scroll down a little further and click on this Show Advanced button, you'll see you have more options for the access control section, which allows you to control the dates and times of when the assignments can be submitted and assessed. And then once we're done configuring our settings, we can scroll down and click the Save and Display button. And after clicking Save and Display, you'll be brought to this screen where you can finish setting up the workshop and switch it to submission phase so that your students can start submitting their assignment. But before switching to the submission phase, we'll need to finish setting up the workshop by editing the assessment form and preparing an example submission. So to edit the assessment form, you just click on it here where the checkbox is, and you'll be brought to this screen where you can enter a description for grading and then a description for each aspect you're grading on. So for example, if you have a rubric for the assignment with several aspects, then you can enter each of those aspects here and allocate a number of points or a weight for each aspect. And this is how you provide a rubric for students to base their assessment on. So I'll go ahead and enter my instructions and my aspects now. And then after entering each aspect and the points associated, you can scroll down and click the Save and Close button to move on to the next step. And now you can see that each step in the setup phase is complete, so my workshop is almost ready to be used. But before notifying students that it's ready, I'll need to switch it to submission phase by clicking on this light bulb in the submission phase section. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then I'll click the Continue button here to confirm that I want to turn submission on. And now that I've switched it to submission phase, the students will be able to access it on the course site, and then they'll be able to submit their assignment. So let's take a look at this from the student's perspective by logging in as a student, and then we'll submit the assignment, and then log back in as another student so we can assess the workshop assignment. Okay, now I'm logged in as a student, so I can submit the workshop assignment by first clicking on the workshop activity. And then once I'm in the workshop activity, I can see I'm in the submission phase. So to submit, I'll just click Submit. And then after clicking Submit, the student will be brought to this page where they can see instructions for submission, and then they can either enter online text or upload a file. When I was setting up the workshop, I selected to have both the online text and the upload a file option. And you can either do one or other or both. So I'll go ahead and submit my assignment. And then after entering the online text or uploading the file, you can scroll down and click Save Changes. And the student will know it's submitted when they're brought to this screen where they can see the content of their assignment, and they can click the Edit Submission button if they need to make changes. So now that there's an assignment submitted, I'll log back in as an administrator so I can allocate submissions to be peer reviewed and switch it to the assessment phase so that students can start assessing each other's assignments. Okay, and now that I'm logged in as the teacher or an administrator, I can click on the workshop activity. And then if I look down here, I can see that there's been some submissions, including the one I just submitted as the test student. So now that I know that there's submissions, I'll need to allocate the submissions by clicking the Allocate Submissions option here. And then after clicking Allocate Submissions, I'm brought to this screen where I can allocate reviewers using the Add Reviewer and Reviewee drop-down menus. And something to note is that only students who have submitted assignments will be able to be allocated as a reviewee. So I'll go ahead and make my allocations now. And then after making the allocations, you're brought to this screen where you can confirm your allocations or make changes if you need to. So now that we've assigned reviewers and reviewees, we need to go back to the workshop. So I'll click on it here. And from here, we'll need to switch it to the assessment phase. So to switch to assessment phase, I'll click on the light bulb icon in the assessment phase column. And then I'll click the Continue button to confirm that I want it in the assessment phase. And then after switching it to the assessment phase, you'll be able to see a summary of submitted assignments and grades down here. But there's no grades yet until the students do the peer review. So let's log in as a student and do that now. Okay, now that I'm logged in as a student, I can go back to the workshop. And since we're in the assessment phase now, I can see that assignment I've been allocated to review down here. And all I need to do to assess is click this Assess button, and I'll be brought to this upcoming page where I can see the content of the assignment and the assessment form with the grading aspects that I set up earlier. So I'll go ahead and complete the assessment form by selecting a grade and adding a comment for each aspect. And you'll need to do that for each aspect in the form. And then after completing the grade and the comment for each aspect, I'll click Save and Continue Editing, or Save and Close if I'm done. So I'll go ahead and click Save and Close to complete the peer review. And now that the peer review is done, the student will have a grade for submitting the assignment, as well as a grade for reviewing the assignment. And then from here, the teacher or the administrator will just need to go back in and complete the workshop by switching it to first the grading evaluation phase so that the teacher can give grades, and then finally the closed phase when everything's all complete and all the grades are done.
Okay, time for a little practice. Test out the workshop activity by setting one up on your Moodle course site, and try going through the whole process as a student so you can see how each phase of the process works. In this video, you learned how to facilitate a peer assessment activity using the workshop activity. In the next section, we'll talk about methods for evaluating students. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to evaluate students and track progress using the gradebook. In the last section, you learned how to make your courses more social with interactive social activities. Now you're going to learn how to check your students' scores on course activities and how to customize grading settings for your course. So let's head over to a course site where we can take a look at an example of a gradebook. From here on the course site, the gradebook can be accessed by scrolling down to the Course Administration menu and selecting the Grades option that you see here. And then after clicking on Grades, you'll be brought to this screen, which is your gradebook. And the gradebook displays scores for each graded activity in the course, like quizzes, lessons, score modules, and other activities where you're able to give a score. And as you can see, when I access the gradebook, I'm brought to what's called the Grader Report, where I can see the names and scores of everybody enrolled in the course. And this is because I'm logged in as the administrator. So this is what the teacher would see, but if you're a student, you'll be brought to the User Report, where you'll only be able to see your own score. And if you're logged in as an administrator or teacher, you can access the Grader or the User Report, along with other grading options using this drop-down menu in the upper left. And as you can see, the User Report is right here, so I'll click on that, and we'll be brought to this screen showing only their grades, which is what the students are brought to when they click on the Grades option from the course site. So to get back to the Grader Report, where I can see everybody's grades, I'll just go back up to the drop-down menu and select Grader Report from the top of the list. And something great about the gradebook is that the calculations and scoring for each activity can be edited and customized to suit the purposes of your course activities. And you can even manually edit the students' scores if you need to. So in order to edit scores and access some of these configuration settings, you'll need to turn editing on, and then you'll see you have some more editing icons appear. So I'll turn editing on. And then you'll see I have these new edit icons appear, and I can manually enter a grade or edit a grade for a student. So to edit a grade, I just need to type in, and then click the Update button. You can also access the grading configuration settings for each activity in the gradebook by clicking on the edit icon that appears in each column after you turn editing on. So if you'd like to change how the scores are aggregated or calculated, then you'll want to use this drop-down menu in the upper left, and we're going to want to go to this Full View option, and this is where we'll have more settings. So I'll select Full View. And then after selecting Full View, you'll be brought to this screen where you can select a different aggregation method, or configure how you want the score to be calculated. The first thing you'll want to configure is the aggregation method using this drop-down menu. And as you can see, you have several options that all have different methods for calculating the total score for the graded activities. By default, the simple weighted mean of grades option will be selected, which is used if you want the activities to have the same value towards the overall score. If you want some activities to be worth more or have a greater weight towards the overall score, then you may want to change the aggregation method to weighted mean of grades that you see here. Then you'll be able to customize the percentage of the overall score that each activity is worth. Or if you simply want the overall score to be determined by adding up the score in each activity, then you can use the sum of scores option. Then after selecting the aggregation method, you'll want to double check this aggregate only non-empty grades option, which tends to cause some confusion. If you leave this option checked, it will only aggregate the score using the activities that the student has completed. So if they don't complete an activity, then that activity won't be used in the overall score. So if you want to make sure the overall score is calculated based off of all activities, whether the student has completed them or not, then make sure to uncheck this option. One more useful option we'll cover here is the option to add grade categories. And grade categories are nice if you have a lot of graded activities in your course, and you want to organize them into groups so that it's easier to look through grades. So for example, if I want to group these activities into sections or maybe by subject, then I'll click this Add Category button, and I'm brought to this screen where I can enter a title and configure the settings for my grade category. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then after configuring the settings, we'll click Save, and we'll be brought back to the full view where we can see our new category, but we still need to add some activities to it. So to do that, you can click the Move icon in the activity that you want to move into the category. So we'll say I want to move this quiz down into our new math category. So I'll click Move, and then I'll click in this box here to add it to the math category. And something that's great about new categories is that you can select different aggregation methods and scoring for your quizzes or activities that are in that category. So if I want the activities that are in this math category to be calculated differently, then I can change the settings here to however I want it to be displayed. And then once I'm done, I'll click Save Changes. So now that I've added my grade category and configured the aggregation methods, I can go back to the grader report, but you may want to change how your gradebook looks and what kind of options you have displayed. So to do that, I can go back to the drop-down menu and select My Preferences for the grader report. And then from here, you have several options that will allow you to customize the look and feel of the grader report. To change the look of the gradebook, you can use these drop-down menus to change settings, then click the Save Changes button. But I'd recommend testing out various options so you can see all of the options you have available to you. For example, you could change the look of the gradebook by having your students' profile pictures displayed. Or you could see more information about how your students are performing by having the grade averages displayed. Or you can make grading a little easier for teachers by enabling the quick grading and quick feedback settings. So you have quite a few settings available to you, so make sure to test them out to see how you can customize the gradebook for your needs. And then after clicking Save Changes, you'll be brought back to the gradebook where you can see the results of your change. And that's how you can change how scores are calculated and the overall look and feel for the gradebook. Okay, time for a little practice. Customize the gradebook for your course so it works best for each activity in your course. Make sure to think about what type of aggregation method you want to use and how much you want each activity to be worth towards your final grade. And don't be scared to test out various options and preferences to see if it will work out best for you. In this video, you learned how to customize the gradebook for the purposes of your course. In the next section, we'll talk about how you and your students can track their progress towards completion of the course. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how you and your students can evaluate whether they've completed all requirements of a course. In the last video, you learned how to track your students' scores on each activity in a course. Now you're going to learn how to use the course completion feature in Moodle to determine what it takes to consider the course or series of courses complete. If your class has many activities or takes place over a long period of time, it can be difficult for your students to determine if they've done well enough on each of those activities to complete the class. And things can become even more complicated if your students are working on some kind of a certification that requires completion of several courses. Luckily, Moodle has the course and activity completion features that can make this much easier to manage for you and your students. So let's start by taking a look at an example of the course completion feature, then we'll cover how to set it up for your courses. So here's a course where I've already set up course completion, and I added the course completion status block to the sidebar of the site. Since I'm logged in as the administrator or teacher of the course, I have the option here to view the course completion report so I can get an overview of how my students are doing. So I'll go ahead and click View Report, and then after clicking View Report, I'll be brought to this screen where I've got a nice overview of all my students in the class and how they're doing on each activity. So if they've completed the activity, then you'll see a check mark here like you see for the quizzes. But if they haven't completed it, then you'll see it blank like these two options here. Okay, so now let's go over how to set this up for your courses. When it comes to setting up course completion, there's 3 parts to the overall setup process. The first part is to enable the course completion feature for your Moodle site. The second part is to set up activity completion for each activity that you want to be considered as a requirement for course completion. And the third part is to set up course completion for each course that you want to use this feature for. We'll need to start with the first part of enabling course completion on the Moodle site before we can start setting up activity and course completion. So let's go ahead back to the site and we'll start setting it up. To enable course completion for the site, we'll need to go to the Advanced option in the site administration.
So I'll expand my site administration option. Then I'll go to advanced features. Okay, and then now that we're here in the advanced feature screen, we'll need to scroll way down, and we are looking for this option here that says enable completion tracking. And you'll want to make sure you have a check mark here. As you can see, I already have it because I've already set it up. But by default, you won't. So you'll need to check here, and then you can go down and click Save Changes to enable it for the site. Okay, now that we've enabled completion tracking for this site, we'll have the options available to configure completion tracking for each course and activity. So let's start by enabling it for a course where I haven't already set it up. Okay, now that I'm in a course where I haven't already set up completion tracking, I can go down to the Edit Settings option under Course Administration. And then from here in the Edit Course Settings page, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we've got the Student Progress section. And by default, it's set to Disabled, but we'll want to enable it so we can start setting up completion tracking. And I usually leave this option at the default. And then we'll scroll down and click Save Changes. Okay, now that we've enabled completion tracking, we'll have this new option here in our settings page called completion tracking. And this is what we'll use to set it up. So I'll go ahead and click on that now. Okay, and starting at the top, you have the option for the aggregation method, which you'll want to leave set to all in most cases. And then the next step is to set up any course prerequisites. So if you wanted to track completion towards a certification of a series of courses, then this is where you would need to select the other courses to include. However, in order for the courses to appear here, you'll also need to set up course completion for those first. So these courses you see here have already had completion tracking set up on them, and that's why you can select them as prerequisites. So I'll go ahead and select them both as prerequisites just for this test. And then if we scroll down, we have our manual completion options here. And the manual completion options are used if you want students to have to confirm that they completed the course by manually clicking on an option. Or you can use these options so that the teacher has to manually indicate that the student has completed the course. And if you want completion to be indicated automatically based off of the student's scores on activities, then you can skip the manual options and scroll down to the Activities Completed option. And this section is used to indicate which activities you want to include as requirements for completion. And as you can see here, all I have is the quiz. So if I wanted any of the other activities on the course to also be included, I'll need to go back and set them up for activity completion. Or if you don't have any activities listed here when you go to it on your Moodle site, then that means you need to go back to the course site and set up activity completion. So I'll go ahead and do that now so that we can set those options. So let me go back to the course site. Okay, and to set up activity completion, we'll need to turn editing on so we can access the settings for the activity. Okay, and I've already got the quiz set up for activity completion. How about we go ahead and set up the lesson also, so that the lesson also has to count towards completion. So I'll go ahead and click the edit icon for the lesson, and then we'll scroll all the way down to this activity completion settings. And you can see by default it said do not indicate activity completion. But we will want to change that to either students can manually mark the activity as completed, or since we want completion to be automatically calculated, we'll use show activity as complete when conditions are met. So I'll select that. And then you also have some more options here to base completion off of. You can base completion off of them viewing it, or whether they have a grade. I want to make sure they have a grade, so I'll go ahead and select that option. And you can also set a due date. And now that I have my option set, I'll go ahead and click Save and Return to Course. Okay, now that we have the lesson set up for completion tracking, I can go back to the completion tracking option and include that as part of the requirements for the course completion. Okay, so I'll scroll down to activities completed, and you can see I already had the quiz there, but now I also have the lesson. So I'll select lesson, and we'll leave the aggregation method as all. And now that I've got the lesson selected to base completion off of, we've also got options to base completion off of a date or a final course grade. So if you want to base completion off of the student's overall final score in the class, you can enter that score here in the grade section. So we'll say that they need to have a minimum final score of 70%, so that the student won't be considered complete with the course until they have a grade on the lesson, the quiz, and an overall final score of 70%. And then we can scroll down and click Save Changes, and we'll have completion tracking set up. But there's still one more thing we'll need to do so we can view reports about completion. We'll need to add the course completion status block to the course site. So I'll go ahead and I already have editing on. And then I'll need to go down to my Add a Block block, and I'll look for the course completion status option. So I'll select course completion status to add it to the side of my site. And what this will do is give me the option so I can view the report that I showed you at the beginning of this video. Okay, and it's already been added. So now that I've added the course completion status block, I have the View Course Report option. And as you can see, it has all the students, it has all the prerequisite courses, the activities, and then the overall activity completion. And as you can see, a few of my students have already completed the quiz and the lesson. They've got check marks here. So now let's take a look at how the course completion status block will look for students by changing my role to a student. Okay, now that I'm logged in as a student, if I look at the course completion status block, it gives me a nice summary of the activities I completed and what's left to be completed before I can be considered done with the course. And this is a great way to make your course more user-friendly, making it clear what needs to be done before the course is completed. And that's it for setting up course completion. Okay, time for a little practice. Go ahead and set up the course completion feature for your course or a series of courses if you're working on some kind of a certification program. Also, make sure to configure the activity completion conditions for different types of activities so you can get a better feel for how course completion works. In this video, you learned how you and your students can evaluate their progress towards completion with the course completion feature. In the next section, we'll talk about how to see even more details about students' participation with activity reports. That's it for now, and we'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to generate activity reports so you can evaluate your students' level of participation in the course. In the last video, you learned how to track progress towards course completion. Now you're going to learn how to use the various reports available in Moodle to see who has been participating in your course and how much traffic your course is getting overall. So let's head over to our course site and take a look at how to access the course reports and the types of reports you have available. To access the reports from the course site, you'll need to go over here to the navigation block and click on this Reports option. And after clicking on Reports, you'll see that you have several types of reports available to you. The main reports we'll discuss are Logs, Activity Report, Course Participation, and Statistics. If you have course completion set up for the course, you'll also have options for the Course Completion Report, as well as the Activity Completion Report. But we already covered those in previous videos, so we'll skip that for now. But before jumping in and using the reports, let's talk about the differences between them and what each report can be used for. First, we have Logs, which shows a detailed log of all the activity on the site. The Logs report is useful if you want to see the detailed activity of everything a student clicked on. Then we have the Activity Report, which gives a nice overview of overall activity on activities in the course. It doesn't show you the details of each student's activity, but it does show you the activity of the class as a whole. And this is good if you want to get a general idea of your students' participation. The Course Participation Report is mainly useful if you're using a forum in your course and want to see an overview of students participating in the forum activity. And finally, we have the Statistics Report, which gives you an idea of how busy your course has been by showing you how many hits it has, so this is a good way to get an overall view of how busy your course site's been. Okay, now that we have an idea of what these reports can be used for, let's see them in action. So let's start by taking a look at the activity logs. So we'll click on the Logs option in the Reports menu, and then we'll need to start by selecting the parameters for our report. The first parameter is for the course. So the name of this course is Activity and Resource Examples, but if we did want to see other courses, we could select it from here. And then we select who we want to see the report for. We could do all participants in the course, or you could select one student in particular. And then you'll want to select which day you want to see the logs for, or if you want it for all days. So if you want it for all days since the course has been created, you can select that option. And you also have the option to choose all activities, or a certain activity in the course. And then you also have options for the type of action, and this will only let you see certain actions such as deleting, viewing, or updating. And then down here you have options for whether you want to display it here on the page, or if you want to download it in Excel or in a text format. And then after selecting all your parameters, you'll just click Get These Logs. So I'll go ahead and click that now. Okay, and now we have a report of all activity in the course. And now this may be more detail than you ever want, unless you're investigating some certain type of issue, such as maybe who deleted something. So if you want just more of a general overview, you might be more interested in the activity report. So I'll click on the activity report now so we can see what that's like. Okay, and here's our activity report. And as you can see, this gives you a much more broad and general overview of what's going on in the class. You can see how many views or blog entries or when the last time each activity was accessed, which gives you a view of whether your activities are being used or not. So the activity report is a much easier way to get a broad overview, whereas the logs report is better to see the details. And you'll find the process for running the course participation report or the statistics report is very much similar to running the logs. So let's click on the course participation report so we can take a look at what kind of information that'll give you. And as you can see, the options for the course participation report are real similar to what you saw in the logs report. So to run a course participation report, we'll need to start by selecting which activity we would like to see the report for. For this example, let's select to see a participation report for the forum. So now that I've got activity selected as the forum, the next thing I'll need to choose is how far I want to look back. So let's say we want to look back 2 weeks. So this will tell us who's posted in the forum in the last 2 weeks. And then the next option will be to choose which role we want to see the report for. So in this example, I want to see how many students are participating. So I'll select student, and then we'll get a report for how many students have participated in the forum over the last 2 weeks. And then our last option is to choose exactly which type of actions. You can leave it as all actions, but since I'm giving credit for forum posts, I'm going to go ahead and select post here, and then I'll be able to see a report for how many students have posted in the forum over the last 2 weeks. And now that I have everything set, I can click the Go button and it'll produce a report. Okay, and now I have my 4 students listed, and in the post column you can see it says no all the way down. And unfortunately that means none of the students have posted in the forum yet, so I'm not going to give anybody credit. If they had posted, there would be a number here, indicating the number of posts that they've had so far. And because it makes it easy to see how many posts they've had in a forum, this is a great way to track participation in a forum, or really any type of activity, as you can see here from the Activity module menu. And that's about it for running activity reports to see who's participating in your courses. Okay, time for a little practice. Get to know more about the reports available to you by practicing with a few reports. Make sure to check out the activity reports, and the logs in particular, to see how you can see who's participating in your courses. In this video, you learned how to evaluate which students are participating in your course activities using the course reports. In the next section, we'll give you some more tips so you can make the most out of your Moodle courses. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development Series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn about other modules and plugins that can be downloaded and installed for your Moodle site. In the last section, you learned how to evaluate your students' performance. Now you're going to learn how to customize your site even further with modules and plugins available at Moodle.org. Yeah, Moodle has a lot of great features built in and available out of the box, but everybody has different needs, so chances are you're not going to find every feature you need readily available in Moodle. Luckily, there's a fantastic community of Moodlers who have developed modules and plugins that can be downloaded and installed to your site, and it'll be available to add to your Moodle site as a block, or it'll be available in the administration menu, depending on the type of module or plugin. However, depending on the module or plugin, the installation process can sometimes be complicated and put your site at risk if you're not careful. I always recommend testing it on a development site, where you can test installing features like this before installing them on your production site. And if you're not comfortable with the process, or don't have access to the web server, then you may need assistance from your site admin. Okay, so let's head over to Moodle.org, and I'll show you how to access a library of modules and plugins available to download for your site. From here on the home page, you can go to the Downloads option on the navigation bar, and you're looking for the Plugins option. And this will take us to the Moodle Plugins directory, where we can scroll down and browse through the categories of plugins available. Or if there's something specific that you're looking for, you can conduct a search for it right here. But I should warn you that there's a lot of interesting plugins that you may want to dive into and install, but you need to think it through first. You want to make sure that the plugin is going to be something that you'll use and will contribute to your site. You don't want to go off and install every plugin you see because it can affect the performance of your site. And you could spend all day browsing through this directory of plugins, so let me save you some time by going over some of the more popular plugins being used. The list you see here is the 5 most downloaded plugins at Moodle.org. There's definitely a lot more available out there, but these are the most popular. The most downloaded plugin is the Game Activity module, which allows you to create online games like Hangman, Crossword, Millionaire, and several others using quiz questions. The game module is a great way to make your quizzes a little more fun and engaging. Then the CROT, C-R-O-T plugin is a plagiarism checker, and is great if you have activities involving essays or reports, and you're worried about plagiarism. Then we have the Certificate module, which is one of my favorite plugins because it allows a certificate to be produced for students after they complete the requirements of a course. And this is a great way to quickly provide your students with a completion certificate when they're done with the course. And then next we have the Tutorship module, which helps teachers to schedule tutoring hours and make appointments with students. If you're a teacher, this is a great way to manage your office hours through your Moodle course site. And then the last plugin we'll talk about for now is the Quick Mail plugin, which provides a way to bulk email your students easily. And with this plugin, you won't have to hunt down everybody in the class's email if you want to send out a group email. And like I mentioned earlier, the installation process for each plugin can vary depending on what type of plugin it is. And every plugin should come with instructions for installing it on your site. But if you're not comfortable with the process described in the instructions, then you may want to seek help from somebody with more experience. It's important to be careful installing plugins, especially on a site that is being used, because if not installed properly, they can even take down your whole site and cause a lot of frustration. One of the key things to pay attention to when selecting a plugin to install is the version of Moodle that it is designed for. You want to make sure that you're downloading a plugin compatible with the version of Moodle you are using,
or you could run into problems. Okay, time for a little practice. Take some time to browse through the available plugins in the directory at Moodle.org. When you find a must-have plugin, download and follow the instructions for installing it on your Moodle site. But remember, you have to be careful and test it on a site that's not being used in case something goes wrong. Or if you're not comfortable with the installation process, get help from your Moodle administrator. In this video, you learned about the most popular plugins and how to access the plugins directory at Moodle.org. In the next section, we'll discuss how you can give your Moodle site a different look by changing the theme. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video you'll learn how to give your Moodle site a different look and feel by changing the theme. In the last section you learned how to customize your site with modules and plugins. Now you're going to learn how to customize your site even further with themes. Once you install Moodle, it doesn't look too bad with the default Moodle theme, but most Moodlers want to customize the look and possibly have it match the colors of their school or organization's branding. Nice thing about Moodle is that you're not stuck with the theme and the overall look of the site that Moodle comes installed with. It's easy to quickly change the look of your site using the themes that are already installed on your Moodle site, or if you're looking for something different, you can find even more themes available at Moodle.org. So let's start by taking a look at themes that are already installed and available on your Moodle site, and how to select them as the theme that you'd like to use for your site. From the homepage of Moodle, you can access your theme options by clicking on the Appearance option in the Site Administration menu. So I'll go ahead and click on Site Administration, and then you're looking for Appearance right here. Then after clicking on Appearance, you'll see this Themes sub-menu option, so I'll click on that. And then you'll find your options for changing theme settings, selecting different themes to be used for your site, and all the settings for each of the individual themes installed on your site. If you like your existing theme, but want to change some of the options that will affect how it looks and works, then you can click on this Theme Settings option. And depending on which theme you're using on your site, you'll have several options that will allow you to make customizations to that theme. So let's click on the Theme Settings option so we can talk about a few of the options you have available. And after clicking on Theme Settings, you have several advanced options for making changes to your theme. But some of the more popular options are the options you see here to customize what theme is displayed according to the user, course category, or individual courses. So using these options, you can set up your Moodle site to display different themes for different courses, or for different people depending on who's logged in. And then if we scroll down to the bottom of the theme settings page, we also have some useful options that will help ensure your Moodle site works correctly on mobile devices. So using these settings, your Moodle site can detect what type of device the user is accessing the site with, and display a theme that works best for that device. You'll definitely want to browse through the theme settings so you can see how the theme can be customized to suit your needs. But if you want to change the theme completely, then you'll want to use the Theme Selector option. So let's go ahead and click on the Theme Selector option so we can preview the available themes and select a new one to be used for the site. After clicking Theme Selector, we're brought to this page where we can see a preview of the theme that's currently being used for the site. And if we scroll down, you can see we even have the option to select different themes for different types of devices that may be accessing your Moodle site. For example, if you think your students may be accessing your site on mobile devices or tablets, then you can select different themes to be used for anybody who accesses the site from those types of devices. And this is a great way to ensure that the site looks good and is usable no matter what type of device your students are accessing it from. For this example, we'll stick to the basics and select the default theme that we want the site to use. So to select a new theme, we just need to click on this Change Theme option next to the default. After clicking Change Theme, we're brought to this page where we can browse through the available themes, then select a new one that we want to use simply by clicking the Use Theme button. You have a lot of themes to choose from, so make sure to spend a little time looking through the different options and really putting some thought into how you want the site to be laid out so you can pick out the ideal theme for your needs. And once you decide on a theme, you can select it by clicking the Use Theme option that you see next to each option. So I'll go ahead and click Use Theme for this Afterburner theme, and it will change the theme to Afterburner. And then after changing the theme, you'll be brought to this page where you can read some more information about your theme in case there's other customizations you want to make. And when you're done reading this information, you can click the Continue button, and you'll be able to check out the new look of your site. And if you don't like how it looks, you can always go back to the Theme Selector and choose a different theme like we have here. Or if you don't like any of the themes and you're comfortable with installing plugins, then you can consider installing one of the many themes available for download at Moodle.org. So let's go head over to Moodle.org and I'll show you how to find more themes available for download. And you can find themes available for download at Moodle.org by going to Downloads, then Plugins. And then from here on the Plugins page, you can scroll down and we're looking for the Themes category that you'll see right here. So I'll go ahead and click on Themes. And then we're brought to the Themes category where we have several options for themes to download.
And there's actually several pages, so you'll want to take some time to browse through and see what's available for you. But before downloading anything, make sure to do some research on the theme to make sure there's no issues that will prevent you from using it on your site. You don't want to waste your time and risk damaging your site with a theme not ideal for your needs. And once you decide on a theme, the install process is very similar to downloading any plugin. So you'll want to carefully read the instructions and get help from your Moodle admin if you're not comfortable with the install process. So as you can see, you have several options for changing the look of your site. You can select from a library of themes that are already installed on your site, and if none of those themes fit your needs, there's even more themes to choose from here at Moodle.org. Okay, time for a little practice. Take some time to browse through the themes that are already available on your Moodle site. Try selecting some different themes so you can see how it actually looks on your site. If the themes already available on your Moodle site don't fit your needs, then browse through what's available at Moodle.org. But remember, you have to be careful and test the theme on a site that's not being used in case something goes wrong. Or if you're not comfortable with the installation process, get help from your Moodle administrator. In this video, you learned about Moodle themes and how to select different themes to be used for your site. In the next section, we'll discuss how to back up and restore your Moodle courses. And that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back to another video in the Moodle Course Development series. I'm Joe Deegan, and in this video, you'll learn how to back up and restore your Moodle courses. In the last section, you learned how to change the look of your site with themes. Now you're going to learn how to back up and restore a Moodle course for security purposes, or if you want to do things like transfer your course to a new Moodle site, duplicate a course, or share a course. And Moodle administrators can also schedule automated backups of the entire site, but we'll stick to the basics with the course backups of individual courses. To back up a course, you'll just need to go to the course site that you need to back up, and if we go over to the Course Administration menu, we'll find the Backup option. So we'll go ahead and click Backup, and then after clicking Backup, we'll be brought to the initial settings page, which is the first step of the backup process. And if you look here at the top of the screen, you'll see we have a progress bar listing the 5 steps of the overall backup process. So the first step is to select what parts of the course we want to back up from these options. And you can choose to back up everything in the Moodle course, such as your activities, resources, role assignments, and even grades. But for this example, I'll choose to include my activities and resources, but I'll skip including user role assignments and grades since we don't need the grades for the new copy of the course. When you're done selecting the parts of the course that you want to back up, we can go down to the bottom right and click the Next button to move on to step 2. And the Schema Settings page allows us to get more detailed by selecting exactly which activities and resources you want to include, as well as selecting which sections of the course that you want to include. So once you're done selecting the Schema Settings, you can scroll down and click the Next button to move on to the next step. So for my example, I'll include all the activities and resources, but I don't need the user data, so I'll unselect that for each activity and resource category here. And then I'll scroll down and click Next. So now we need to confirm and review all of the options we selected before performing the backup. If your selections look good and you didn't miss anything that you want to make sure is included in the backup, then you can scroll down all the way to the bottom down here and click the Perform Backup button. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and depending on what you selected to include in the backup, it can take a little bit for the process to complete. So once the backup is complete, you'll be brought to the Complete page, which is the last step of the backup process. And then once you're brought to the Complete page, you can click the Continue button to complete the process, and your Moodle site will be backed up here on the site. After clicking Continue, you'll be brought to the Restore page, which is also accessible from down here on the Course Administration menu. And this is where you'll need to go to restore the course, or if you want to download the backup file to your computer for safekeeping, or to transfer the course to another Moodle site, then you can click the download option that you see here. But for this example, we want to make a copy of the course. So to do that, we just need to click the restore option that you see here next to the backup file we just created. If we needed to restore a course from another Moodle site, then we would need to go up here and upload the backup file using the options you see here. So for this example, I'll go ahead and click the Restore option that you see here to restore from the backup I just made. And after clicking Restore, we're brought to this page, which is similar to what we saw when backing up the course, where we select exactly what parts of the course that we want to restore. As you can see from the progress timeline at the top, the restore process has a couple more steps. But if you backed up only what you need from the course, then the process should go pretty quickly. But the first step is to confirm everything about the course format and what we want to restore. So you'll want to review everything on this page to make sure the course is compatible with the version of Moodle you're using and that you have included everything you need to restore. If all of these details look good, then you can go ahead and scroll all the way down and click the Continue button. And after clicking continue, you have options to choose where and how you want the course to be restored. So you have 3 options as to how you want to restore the course. You can choose to restore as a new course, which will create a new copy of the course on your Moodle site, and you can choose which category you want to put the copy in. You also have the option to restore into this course, which is great if you want to merge activities or grades from another course into this course. And the third option you have here is to restore it into an existing course, which will allow you to merge or combine the backup with another course on your Moodle site. And depending on which option you want to go with, you'll need to select the settings, then click the Continue button in its section for the option you want to use. So for this example, I want to create a copy of the course. So I'll go with the Restore as a New Course option, and I'll choose for it to go into the Miscellaneous category. And then I just click Continue to create a new copy of my course in the Miscellaneous category. If you're in doubt of which option to choose, then select Restore as New Course to avoid causing any problems with existing courses. Now the next step of the restore process is to confirm the restore settings. So from here we'll just need to make sure that we included the correct items in the backup and what exactly we want to restore. If there's something that you want to include in the restore, but it has a red X next to it, that means it's not included in the backup, so you'll need to redo the backup if you wanted to include that data. If the checked options are what you want to restore, then you can go ahead and click the Next button, and we'll be brought to the Schema page, where we can choose exactly which activities we want to include and what we want to call the course. If you want to change the name of your course, then you can do that here at the top of the screen in the name fields. And if there's any activities or sections of the course page that you didn't want to include, then you can uncheck them here. And once everything's set, you can go ahead and scroll down and click the Next button, and we'll be brought to the next step, which is to review everything we just selected and to make sure we have everything we need for the backup. And if everything looks good, you can go ahead and scroll down and click the Perform Restore button down at the bottom to start the restore process. And just like with the backup process, if you choose to include a lot of data, then the restore process will take longer. And once the restore completes, you'll be brought here to the Complete page, where you can just click the Continue button to be brought to the new copy of the course site that we backed up and restored. So I'll click Continue. And here we are in the new copy of the course. And that's how you back up and restore a Moodle course. Okay, time for a little practice. Try out the backup and restore process for yourself to learn more about how you can make copies of your courses. Also think about the possibilities to work with other teachers and administrators to share activities or whole courses using the backup and restore process. In this video, you learned how to back up and restore your Moodle courses. And that's it for the Moodle Course Development Series. I hope this course helped you to learn more about Moodle so that you can make the most out of your courses.